Super Television. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226. Strange Dagger. Don't even think about it. Yisai snorted coldly, and swung the spear in his hand at the surrounding black shadow. Whoosh! The sharp blade cut through the air, without any damage to the black shadow. Huh? Yisai frowned, and he was increasingly disgusted and yearning for this kind of spatial ability. It was a very contradictory idea, but it was the most true portrayal of his heart at the moment. The attack was fruitless, and before Yisai could think of other ways to crack it, thousands of shadows combined into one, forming a round sphere with a radius of 10 feet around him. Yin fire, rise! Li Jing opened the fan in his hand and fanned it violently at the black sphere. Whoosh! A gray flame burned out of thin air, and in a flash it had already rushed into the black sphere. A scream came from Yisai's mouth. Yin fire is an extremely cold fire. It will not only cause indelible cold damage to physical existence, but also weaken and damage a person's soul and essence. Yang fire, rise! Whoosh! Another raging flame, but this time it was the red yang fire of the strongest and most yang. Kagaku, don't let me out, or I will tear you to pieces. In the black sphere, I rushed left and right, shouting and cursing loudly. At this time, his hair was disheveled, and he no longer had the free and cold air before. What was left was only madness and ferocity. Shadow needle threading is an extreme yin-dun technique developed by Li Jing. This technique contains the shadow technique, time and space ninjutsu, sealing technique, and many other secret techniques. These essences are combined together, and Li Jing is going to form a complete set of unique secret technique system. The developed shadow needle threading is just one of the methods of use in this series of techniques. The power of this system of ninjutsu is far from being fully demonstrated. But even so, the black sphere formed by shadow needle threading carries a sealing and blocking power that is more powerful than the 4 red yang formation barrier that can only be used by the combined strength of 4 people, and the God Gate seal used by the first generation Hokage Senju Hashirama. Fire of the Netherworld, rise! The third flame joined, and Dai screamed again. Li Jing had already treated him as a refiner. Although the methods and effects were different, the power of these 3 flames was not discounted at all. Jingji, I must kill you. Oh, very good, but it's a pity that my name is not Jingji. Li Jing smiled slightly, and there was a bit of bad taste in it. What? Inside the black ball, I's voice paused slightly, as if he couldn't believe it, or he was still distracted at the critical moment. But no matter what, these trivial matters were insignificant to Li Jing. He stretched out his hands and his face became more serious. Close. Kaka. As Li Jing's hands moved closer to each other, the black sphere not far away began to slowly compress and shrink, and I in the black ball was even more furious at this time. His face was extremely hideous. If you want my life, how can you not pay any price? Yisai gave up the useless work of fighting around, patted his waist, and a dagger with spots of rust appeared in his hand. The black barrier outside his body was very strange. Even the method of the soul of the 100-foot body was suppressed and could not be used. Now, the only way to save himself was to find another way. Yisai sneered slightly. Even he himself didn't know the origin of the dagger in his hand. Although it was so, it would not prevent him from using this magic weapon. He believed that as long as this magic weapon moved, the enemies outside the black barrier would be separated from their heads. With a thought in his mind, Yisai supported the defense shield outside his body to resist those strange flames, and at the same time transferred most of the energy in his body into the dagger in his hand. This magic weapon was found by him in an unknown ancient ruins. He had only used it twice before, and every time he used it, the surprises and results brought to him by this magic weapon would make him gain a lot. However, it is not an easy task to use this magic weapon. The energy consumed is even more tiring than Yisai's own 3 days and 3 nights of fighting. Moreover, it is not only energy consumption, but also blood essence. You must know that the amount of blood essence in the human body is limited. It has nothing to do with how high a person's combat power is or how strong his strength is. If he loses one drop, even Yisai now needs a long time to slowly replenish it. What's more, every time the magic weapon is used, at least 3 drops of blood essence are consumed as a guide. Thinking of the hatred that Li Jing brought to himself, Yisai's face became colder. Without the slightest hesitation, Yisai had already forced out a drop of blood essence from his eyebrows. Blood essence refers to the blood that contains one's own spirit, energy and spirit. It is the core and center of gravity of a person. It does not refer to the ordinary heart blood. Although the heart blood is many times purer than ordinary blood, it is far from being the core essence of a strong man. A drop of blood essence was absorbed by the dagger in his hand. Yisai, whose face was already a little pale, gritted his teeth and forced out another drop, and then forced out the 3rd drop. After consuming 3 drops of blood essence, Yisai's spirit and energy immediately became weak as if he had fought for 7 days and 7 nights. Thinking that he could kill the enemy in front of him immediately, Yisai's extremely pale face also showed a slight smile, but no matter how he looked at it, it felt a bit forced and uncoordinated. Die, go. Yisai raised his hand slightly, and the dagger in his hand disappeared as his mind went. Li Jing, who was controlling the black barrier to shrink again, was suddenly shocked at this moment, as if he felt that something bad was about to happen. It felt like a thorn in his throat and a thorn in his back. Swish, as if traveling through time and space, a sudden dagger had already been inserted into Li Jing's heart. At this moment, the Hades armor and the powerful body were all useless waste in front of this dagger. What is this? Li Jing's mind was shaken, his eyes widened, and he slowly raised his palm, trembling as he grabbed the dagger on his chest. However, such a simple action seemed to have exhausted all his strength. This dagger was not just a simple physical injury. As soon as it entered his body, Li Jing was already blocked by a cold energy. The huge energy in his body only rebounded slightly, supporting him to raise his arm, and then it was suppressed and sealed, and then disappeared. Things are far more than that. The seal is just the beginning. This cold energy will cause damage to Li Jing's body next, which is the most fatal. Destruction. Destruction from the most fundamental level. Every cell, every molecule, every element, is the most essential annihilation. Even Li Jing's soul is not spared. Chapter 227 Defeat the enemy stick. Ha ha ha. A burst of wild laughter came, but it was because Li Jing was in danger at this time. The 4 black shadows using the shadow stitching technique disintegrated by themselves, and the barrier that blocked Yisai also broke by itself. The barrier disappeared, and Yisai with a pale face came out of it. Although he was also very exhausted at this time, his strength was less than 20% or 30% of his heyday, but it was much better than Li Jing's current life and death crisis. Haha. Kigaku. I don't care what your real name is, you are about to die now. Don't even think about having any chance to turn over. Yisai sneered again, and he couldn't hide the joy of killing the big enemy. This feeling is simply hearty and refreshing. Li Jing did not answer. He was sealed by the strange dagger. Even if he wanted to speak, he could not do it. The cold and destructive force that entered his body was destroying all the vitality in his body every moment. At this extreme speed, it would not take much time. Well, with a muffled groan, Li Jing's somewhat painful face had turned into a lifeless gray-white. Before he could think about anything else, the skin on his face fell off piece by piece like a wall that had been in disrepair for a long time. With a light sound, Li Jing's entire right arm fell to the ground, shattered, turned into dust and disappeared with the wind. Pa. Okay. Ha ha ha. Jingjai, you deserve this disaster for going against me. Yisai clapped his hands, his face full of sarcasm. But you can rest assured that when you die, everything you have will belong to me. Those treasures will definitely not be humiliated in my hands. Yisai smiled slightly and stepped slightly with force. Bang! A vibration was transmitted to Li Jing's feet. His body, which had long been corroded by the cold dagger and riddled with holes, could no longer hold on. Crash! The broken bodies were scattered all over the ground, all of which turned into dust with the wind. Every bit of life is gone. and the reincarnation of the past brings sorrow. The past is all false, and the iron horses and golden swords are sad for the disciples. With a cold smile, Yi Sai waved his hand casually, and a breeze blew over. The dust transformed by Li Jing's body was blown into the sky and disappeared without a trace. The only thing left on the spot was a rusty dagger and a blue cube like a crystal, the cosmic cube. Yi Sai's eyes lit up. The cube was this treasure. This dangerous battle, which was full of life and death, was mostly caused by this thing, although even if there was no such thing, he would never let go of the guy with the advanced system. But looking at the whole battle, this cube treasure also played an important role in the lead. But it was finally over, and this treasure was finally his. Yi Sai smiled slightly. The enemy had been eliminated, and he was exhausted and relaxed. He took a step and walked slowly towards the place where the cosmic cube was. It was just a few steps away. Yi Sai showed a happy expression and bent down slightly. Swish! Suddenly, a sharp pain went straight to his heart. Yi Sai lowered his head slowly in disbelief. The tip of a sharp sword had pierced his chest and appeared in front of him. "What is this?" Yi Sai muttered to himself, still unbelievable. "It's me. It's only one time for one person. You don't have to be too surprised. But I don't know if you can live again like me." As if it was retribution in this life, Li Jing's face slowly appeared behind Yi Sai, and the pupil of all things in his left eye was dim at this time, as if he was blind. Izanagi, the ultimate illusion unique to the Sharingan, can instantly transform all disadvantages of the caster, including death, into dreams in a very short time, and can even transform all favorable factors of the attacker into reality. Izanagi is an ultimate eye technique that can freely control dreams and reality, but the conditions required to use it are also extremely harsh, that is, at the cost of blinding the caster's eyes. And not only that, controlling illusion and reality is not a simple matter. The pupil power of the Sharingan at the level of the Mangekyo is extremely limited. It is simply beyond the power to transform and restore the combat power of Li Jing's level. The Mangekyo, for Li Jing at this time, has long been reduced to a dispensable waste. The Izanagi technique that has long been set in the eye of all things has saved Li Jing's life at this moment, but the price is that he cannot use the left eye technique again within half a year. This is because Li Jing has the ability to control cells. Even if he uses his supernatural power to copy another eye of all things again, it will take almost this time. This is impossible. That dagger is. Yi Sai's mouth was bleeding, and he roared loudly with his eyes wide open. That dagger is a magic weapon, and it has never failed. How could such a thing happen? Humphrey, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Do you still need me to teach you such a simple truth? Yi Sai. Li Jing's voice was cold, and there was no emotion in his tone. This time he used the Izanagi technique. Even without this secret technique, Yi Sai's dagger alone could not kill him, because in addition to this Izanagi technique, Li Jing also has at least two absolute ways to save his life. As for Yi Sai, from the moment Li Jing approached him, from the moment he was pierced by Li Jing's sword, he was destined to have no chance of turning the tables. Wang Xiantian locked his body, the nether prison locked his soul, and the remaining energy in Yi Sai's body was also completely converted by Li Jing's cell control ability. Yi Sai, there is no chance of turning over. Swish 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 swish. Li Jing drew out his sharp sword and casually made a few sword flowers. With a scream, blood splattered, Yi Sai fell to the ground in an instant, and his whole body was cut into a stick. Why? Yi Sai clenched his teeth, and his red pupils were already full of bloodshot. There is no reason, it's just that you are more valuable alive than dead, but I don't want to cause any more trouble because of you, so I have to do this. Li Jing smiled slightly, and with a wave of his hand, he took out a life support device from the tattoo space. You, don't even think about it. Yi Sai roared loudly, and the red light in his eyes became even brighter. Swish, swish. Another scream. This time, Yi Sai's eyes were picked out by Li Jing's sword. HMPH, I've used pupil skills too many times. How could I leave you this chance? Li Jing sneered. After reinforcing the seal, he injected the latest nanoworms into Yi Sai's body. After making sure everything was safe, He threw him into the life support device and refrigerated him. Yisai came from the Lonely Light universe, and Li Jing was curious about the special time and space where this production system had such a bug, but he was also on guard. Leaving Yisai alive would help him learn more about the Lonely Light universe. At the very least, Li Jing would never let him die easily before he had explored all of Yisai's memories. Chapter 228 The Thundering Guy. After putting away the life support device, the strange dagger and the cosmic cube on the ground, Li Jing looked up at the land around him. Desolate, bleak, abnormal temperature, radiation everywhere, crystallized ground, raging winds. The harsh environment after the nuclear explosion is not an area where humans can survive normally, but it doesn't matter. The capture of Ai can be regarded as the elimination of a tiger blocking the road, and the next thing needs to be done with concentration again. With a thought, Li Jing disappeared. Thousands of kilometers away from the nuclear explosion area, two parties were confronting each other. These two parties were Loki and others who had fled to the nuclear explosion before, as well as Tovi and the exquisite woman Ella. Hey, what's the name of that toe? Loki. Tony tapped his forehead with his fingers, as if he couldn't remember the name at all. Loki, we are working for the same boss anyway. Are we just going to watch our boss work overtime while we wait here? What do you mean? Loki looked at Tony expressionlessly. He was really disgusted with this chatterbox. Hey, you are so stupid. Is it hard to understand what I said? Tony laughed at him and suddenly turned to look at Thor, the god of thunder, who was also expressionless. Tell him that guy who made thunder. Thor's eyelids jumped, and suddenly he felt like he was being shot. You can call me Thor, otherwise the guy who made thunder will also hit all the lightning on your turtle shell. Thor also had a blank expression on his face, but the silent look he gave Tony had told Tony that he was not joking. Okay, you come and popularize science for your good brother. Tony raised his hands in surrender, feeling that the two brothers really lacked a sense of humor. Brother, popular science? Loki sneered. Don't bother, I don't need two prisoners to explain anything to me. What you have to do now is to shut up and wait. As for the rest, it's best not to think about it. After Loki finished speaking, he returned to his previous indifference, and even this time he closed his eyes, with a look of not wanting to be disturbed. Tony Stark, how could Loki not hear the meaning contained in his words? He just wanted to take advantage of Li Jing's absence to provoke a fight between the two parties. No matter what the result is, Tony's goal has been achieved halfway. In the remaining half, it depends on whether God gives face and whether it is good enough. Loki's non-participation made Tony speechless for a while, and Thor, who was left, also had his own considerations. As for the only two people left on Tovi's side, they didn't have a single verbal exchange from beginning to end. One reason was that the relationship between the two was like this, and the other was Ella's personality problem. Tovi, who had known all this for a long time, was too lazy to mention it at this time, because it would be useless to do so. Swish, a figure suddenly appeared and stood in the center of the field. Loki opened his eyes and smiled at the people in the field. The development of things seemed to be moving in the expected direction. It couldn't be better to be like this. Hey, the boss is here, which means that the enemy has been killed. Tony curled his lips slightly. It's better for us to show our faces quickly, lest this boss is unhappy and eliminate us all again. Humphrey. Loki snorted coldly, but did not oppose Tony. Instead, he walked behind the person who had just appeared with everyone else. This person who had just appeared was undoubtedly Li Jing, who had moved with the time and space ninjutsu. Since you have eliminated the enemy, shouldn't we? Li Jing did not turn around, but waved his hand slightly to interrupt Loki's question. He took a few steps forward and looked directly at the only two remaining members of the II-5, Tovi, and the exquisite woman. Aren't you going to do it yet? If I do it, your role will be reduced by 1 point. What? Tovi asked in confusion, but he had just opened his mouth when the severe pain from his back interrupted him abruptly. Why? Tovi's mouth was bleeding, his eyes widened, and he slowly turned around in disbelief. Behind him, the sharp blade from Ella's hand had completely penetrated his chest. Moreover, the sharp blade did not pass through his heart, but chose the hidden core in the center of Tovi's chest. This was a one-hit kill attack, enough to kill Tovi in a very short time. TSK without answering Tovi's question, Ella, the delicate woman, expressionlessly took back the weapon in her hand, and Tovi was injured and fell to the ground in an instant, with more and more blood flowing out of his mouth. Why? He died with his eyes open, and until Tovi took his last breath, he couldn't get the answer he wanted from Ella. I killed him not because I wanted to improve my status in your eyes, but because I wanted to do it myself. The voice was crisp, like the spring breeze blowing on the willows. It was the first time that Li Jing heard the voice of this delicate woman. It was really beautiful. Compared with Celine, who had a very nice voice, this woman was better. Oh, you are the only one left among the 5 of you now. Do you still want to resist, or are you sure you can escape from my hands? Li Jing sneered and pressed on step by step. Escape? I think you are wrong. Why should I escape? Ella reached out and touched her waist. A ruby on her waist shone slightly, and a small bright silver device suddenly appeared in her hand. Since you can show up, it means that Yisai has failed. I hope you didn't really kill him, because that result is not what you want to see. What do you mean? Li Jing smiled slightly. The woman in front of him was so confident that he was a little surprised. Yisai, an officer of the Gulen Star region. We came out this time just for a very ordinary vacation, at least before we searched for your advanced system. Ella paused slightly and spoke again. Killing an officer of the Gulen Star region means that you will be hunted down by the Gulen Star region. At that time, you and everything around you will be trampled and crushed by those who are 10 or 100 times stronger than Yisai. Oh? Li Jing smiled slightly. His face did not change at all. Even so, why should I believe you? As if she had expected that Li Jing would not believe it easily, Ella moved her finger lightly, and the silver device she had taken out before turned into a parabola from midair and fell directly towards Li Jing. Chapter 229 Women's Scheming. Snap. Li Jing raised his hand and held a silver device in his hand. There is some information about the Gulen Star region stored here. As for whether you believe it or not, you can read it first. Ella seemed to have nothing to do with it, and seemed to be sure of victory. After the words fell, she ignored Li Jing. Interesting. Li Jing smiled slightly. Sky Eye, check the information inside. Okay, boss. Didi, the void signal is connected. Under the rapid computing power, the Sky Eye has established a transmission channel with the silver device in Li Jing's hand, and began to quickly process and analyze the information in it. As for Li Jing, he looked at the exquisite woman in front of him with interest, not because of her appearance, but because of the series of actions this woman had done before. Seeing through the illusion but not helping teammates. Teammates were injured and did not go forward to maintain, and before the nuclear explosion, when the stacking formation was formed, if it weren't for this woman's lack of effort and sloppy work, Li Jing would have to spend more time to break through the stacking formation of the 4 people. Otherwise, it would not be as easy as before, easily breaking through the formation of 4 people, and even killing 2 of them in succession. Even if Li Jing was very strong, he would not be able to do these things in the time that Yisai could not react. Taking these events as an example, it is enough to prove that there is a hostile relationship between the woman in front of him and Yisai and others, and there may even be some kind of deep hatred. Otherwise, she would never do such an incident of aiding the enemy. Ding Di boss, the things in here are indeed about the information of the Gulen Star region. Danyan spoke, interrupting Li Jing's thinking. What are they? Boss, it says here that the Gulen Star region is an extremely large force, sitting on a territory equivalent to the size of dozens of galaxies, with a large army, warships like a flood, and countless powerful warriors. Even a figure like Yisai, in the special operations team belonging to the Gulen Star region, is only a small captain level. And there is another point. Any officer in the Gulen Star region who travels through time and space outside, if any unexpected incident occurs, such as encountering danger or being killed, the relevant agency in the Gulen Star region will know the news after his death, and the Gulen Star region will also send a more powerful military to investigate the situation based on the clues left by the officer after his death. Oh, is there such a thing? Li Jing was a little surprised. The credibility of this matter is indeed very high, because as long as he goes to check Yisai's memory, everything will naturally be clear at a glance. If the woman in front of him wants to lie, it will not stand up to any scrutiny. How about it? After reading the information, can we talk? Ella observed the expression and said softly, "What is your purpose?" Li Jing raised his head slightly and looked directly at the woman. "To save my life and take revenge, that's all." Li Jing smiled slightly. "Really? Then what do you want to exchange for your life?" "Don't get me wrong." Ella shook her head gently. "When I say save my life, I mean to save my life under the pursuit of the Gulen Star region. As for you, I just want to cooperate with you once." "Oh, cooperation?" Li Jing couldn't help but smile again, because he found that the surprises he got from this woman were more than he imagined. "Yes, cooperation. I can give you all the information I know about the Lonely Light universe, just in exchange for something that has no use to you at all." "What? The intermediate system on Yisai, is that true?" Li Jing smiled again. "It is estimated that this is the only thing that can make the person in front of him persevere and not care about his own safety at all. Aren't you afraid that I will regret it later? Compared to being trapped in this space and time, I would rather take a risk. Besides, I, Ella, am not without a chance. If you regret it later, then at most we will just part ways and no one will get anything." Ella slapped her waist again, and another silver device appeared in her hand. This time, she pressed her finger lightly, and a red light on the silver device flashed non-stop. "Boss, that is a self-destruct system. It also exists on the device she gave you before." Without Ella's personal explanation, Danyan had already explained it. "Oh, self-destruct? It's really an unpleasant thing." Li Jing smiled slightly. Although he said so, he didn't seem to take this threat seriously at all. "Give your answer." "Information, system, transaction completed. We will go our separate ways, and there will be no involvement from now on." Ella pressed step by step, without giving in. "Okay." Li Jing gave a very straightforward answer, as if he didn't think too much. Such straightforwardness made Ella a little stunned, but she quickly came to her senses. After all, this was the best result she hoped for. "Okay, give me the system and I will give you the information." "No, no," Li Jing interrupted Ella and continued, "Did you forget something? I don't know how to get the system out of II." Li Jing's denial immediately made Ella's mind rise, but after hearing Li Jing's explanation, Ella stabilized her mind again and returned to nature. "This is not difficult. The system does not exist in the host. You just need to take it from him." "What did you say?" "Host." Suddenly, Li Jing interrupted Ella again, and this time, Li Jing's tone was a little cold. "It's the host. What's the problem?" Ella frowned slightly. After being interrupted several times, she had some doubts about whether the man in front of her would really abide by the agreement. "Host, host," Li Jing muttered to himself, as if he was thinking about something. "What on earth are you thinking about? If you don't want to make a deal, then we'll part ways, and you won't get any information about the Lonely Lamp universe from me." Ella asked coldly. Her tone was already very impatient. Li Jing waved his hand slightly. It was really not suitable to think about other things at this time. "You continue, Humphrey." Ella snorted coldly, but still repeated the original words again. "It is not too difficult to obtain other people's systems. There are two ways. One is to kill the owner of the system directly and let the system become ownerless. The second is to take out the tattoo space on the host without killing the host. That is, to use the key or certificate of the system. If you want to further obtain the recognition of the system by using this method, you need more complicated means. Thank you all for your support and love. The Dragon Boat Festival is here. I wish you all peace and happiness." By the way, I only ate 2 zongcai this year, and they were not delicious. It was the same in previous years. The cactus was almost desperate for this kind of food. Which book friend has eaten delicious rice dumplings? Please recommend them to me so that I can enjoy the feast too. Thanks again, everyone. Happy holidays. This book group, 170.756.165. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Life is like a play. seeing Yisai being cut into a stick and having his eyes gouged out again. Even with Ella's own indifference, she was a little frightened, which forced her to face the man in front of her again. The man who defeated Yisai and made him look like this. Li Jing didn't know what Ella was thinking, and even if he knew, he wouldn't care. At this moment, he was removing the tattoo space representing the system key from Yisai's body. The tattoo space is a companion prop that can be changed into any shape and can exist in any part of the human body, but it cannot leave the human body. Speaking of it, it is like a parasite that cannot survive independently, but it doesn't matter. Li Jing looked at the tattoo space that shrank into a small ball after leaving Yisai's body, and couldn't help but think of the same type of things on his own body. Although the system is powerful, it also has advantages and disadvantages, not to mention. Li Jing suddenly cut off his thoughts, waved his hand to put away the life support cabin containing Yisai, turned slightly, and looked at Ella not far away again. The stuff is here. How about you? Will you give me the information? Give it to me, before I leave. The information will naturally be left to you. Ella did not give in. The device flashing red in her hand was raised again. Li Jing shook his head and sneered, as if he had expected this. Is there any need to continue this meaningless transaction? How about we cooperate in a different way? What? Ella frowned slightly. I have no interest in knowing what your hatred is, but I think it is nothing more than related to the Gulen Star region. Seeing that you can be ordered around by a captain-level figure like I, that means that your identity is nothing to the Gulen Star region, and you yourself, in the Lonely Light universe, it is hard to say whether you will have any powerful helpers. What do you want to say? Ella frowned even deeper. Li Jing shook his head slightly. Being anxious can only prove that what I said is right. Instead of rushing back to die, you might as well stay and work for me wholeheartedly. Maybe one day I will go to the Lonely Universe and help you solve your enemies. What a joke. It's a huge joke. Ella sneered, as if she had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. Help me to get revenge? Do you know who my enemy is? Who do you think you are? Don't be funny. I will exchange the information for the system in your hand. The conditions remain unchanged. Hurry up. I don't have time to listen to your story here. Really? I thought you could be so smart. But now it seems that you are just so-so. Tilda with a scream. Ella's arm was broken at the wrist, and the device flashing red light did not fall to the ground, but was caught in the hand of Li Jing, who passed by. Not only that, a black mist suddenly came and directly penetrated into Ella's body, who was still screaming. It was another painful torture. Ella, who was controlled by the nano-worms, collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. You aren't afraid? Are you not afraid that the data will be destroyed? Humphrey, Li Jing sneered, it's just a trick to delay time. Do I need to explain it? The self-destruct system of the device carrying the data had been conquered by the Sky Eye long before, and now, after the device reached Li Jing's hands, even the flashing red light slowly stopped. Are you saying that everything you said is false? Are you just perfunctory to me? Ella collapsed to the ground, still arguing weakly as if she was still unwilling to give up. The words of the man in front of her really made it difficult to tell which one was true and which one was false, or were they all lies? This kind of thing don't make yourself sound so pitiful. The truth of a person's words does not depend on whether he will lie, but on whether you, the listener, will really believe it. There is no trust between you and me, even if what I say is true. How much can you listen to it? You, Humphrey, Li Jing snorted coldly. When people receive external information, they naturally have their own independent judgment ability. Otherwise, if others believe it, who can they blame? What's more, Li Jing's previous words were not completely deceiving. He really hoped that this woman named Ella could assist him wholeheartedly. Li Jing did not want to use threats and coercion to add an unnecessary puppet, nor could he really let Ella leave and let her return to the Lonely Lamp universe to increase the risk of exposing herself in advance. Again, work for me wholeheartedly to increase my understanding of the Lonely Universe. This is also a bet for your own life and death in the future. Humphrey, you have to understand one thing clearly, from the beginning to the end. I will never let you leave this time and space and add any possible troubles to me. Ella was silent. She figured it out. She really figured it out. She had thought wrong about this deal from the beginning. She had completely lost from the beginning. The man in front of him, knowing the threat of I very well, was able to put away his murderous intention and leave him alive. This obviously showed that he had thought of a lot, and thought of all aspects that ordinary people could not. But I was still too stupid and underestimated the person in front of me. I thought I had caught the other party's weakness and used it to threaten him. I thought I had controlled all the changes in the matter, but I never thought that I was the dispensable and inconspicuous little bug. A clown who talks and acts by himself. I lost, and I'm convinced of my defeat. Ella gritted her teeth and propped herself up, half kneeling on the ground. Thank you for teaching me this valuable lesson. Ella, will do whatever you want. Li Jing smiled and looked at Ella again. Good, good. You can figure it out by yourself, and it's worth the time I spend on you. Get up. Thank you, sir. Ella stood up and saluted again. Li Jing nodded and smiled. At this time, the two sides seemed to have put aside their past grudges and were very harmonious, but Li Jing knew very well in his heart, as the saying goes, to judge a person's actions and performance, you must have your own position and independent consciousness. Ella now seems to be obedient, but no matter how fast and rapid a person's transformation is, it will not be what it will become. Life depends on acting skills, and feelings are all bullshit. Ella is acting, Li Jing is watching. As for how much of it is true and how much is false, only Ella herself will know. As for how credible this performance is, only the audience, Li Jing himself, will understand. Chapter 231 God. He's an Asian. The matter was over, and the 5-member Yi Sai team was completely wiped out. Although they had solved a powerful enemy again, Li Jing did not relax, because the unknown existence that had not really appeared yet. Loki, I will hand over the army to you again. The next action will depend on your performance as the future king. As Li Jing waved his hand, a large three-dimensional container suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Dong, the container landed, and the weight of more than 10 tons hit the ground slightly. Loki smiled slightly and saluted Li Jing slightly. A wise decision will make you find that this is the most correct choice. Hey, Li Jing's mouth moved slightly, without comment, and signaled Tanyan to open the container. Under Tanyan's takeover operation, the container made a few clicks, and the 4 metal doors opened together, leaving only a metal frame support. Buzz. After a few vibrations, more than 10 life support devices in the container were activated. After a burst of cold white smoke, more than 10 life support devices were all turned on. Kaka. In less than a few minutes, more than 10 people wearing nano equipment woke up, left the life support devices and came to Li Jing. My lord. More than 10 people half knelt on the ground and bowed their heads to salute. Well, get up, Li Jing responded. These people were all characters who served as Cobra officers in the world of Naruto. Each of them had experienced hundreds of fights and dozens of battles. Each of them was an elite with unique skills. It took some time for Li Jing to arrange for these officers to understand the current situation, as well as the tasks and orders to be performed next, and then he handed the team over to Loki for management, and said nothing more. The opportunity was given, and the powerful targets that could be eliminated had been eliminated. The troops were given. These Cobra officers were also proficient in the evil world reincarnation technique, and each of them was enough to be used as 1 against 1,000. As for the subsequent actions, it depends on whether the commander Loki has talent. The result that Li Jing wants is not to truly rule the earth in this space and time. For now, all he needs is to completely confuse the clarity here. No matter how powerful the reincarnation core is, and no matter how capable the Cobra officers are, Li Jing will never waste his army on useless acts of guerrilla warfare and attrition with the humans on Earth. The reason for doing this now, letting Loki lead the troops to deal with the local army, is just to throw 2 smoke bombs and let Loki attract everyone's attention. As for the idea that Loki can conquer the Earth with less than a few thousand troops and then sit on the world-class country, don't even think about it. Even if the reincarnation core is powerful, Li Jing has never considered that he can rule the world with just such a small force. Loki arranged his troops and prepared to open the road to kingship again. After handing over the troops to Loki, Li Jing disappeared again, and no one knew where he went. Outsiders had no way of knowing all this. But at this time, a piece of news, or even a legend, was circulating around the world. Wherever this legend came to light, people were shocked and excited. God is in Asia. An article with such a title party, and a small video attached, was only circulated in a small circle at first, but as more and more people knew about it and watched the video, this unconfirmed gossip gradually evolved into a hot topic. The video was only a few minutes long, and the angle of the shot was not very professional. It can be seen that the photographer took the shot while the plane was shaking. The video screen was exactly the battle scene between Jing and the Avengers team before the destruction of New York City, as well as the battlefield scene between the Reincarnation Corps and the alien army. What's more, in the last few shots, there were several battle scenes between Jing and I. After the video was verified to have no signs of modification, everyone who watched this video went from strong doubts at the beginning, to half-belief, to amazement and passion in the end, and even yearning. Add to that the recorded footage of Loki's speech, and the energy that erupted was simply earth-shaking, unmatched. Especially in Asia, there are countless legends of demons and monsters, as well as immortals and cultivators on the Chinese land. Not to mention that in today's era of extremely developed networks, there are so many cultivation systems and novels that they are simply countless. Flying into the sky and hiding in the ground, invincible flesh, a powerful army, and I am the only supreme. Who wouldn't yearn for it? Who can withstand the temptation of immortality? And when all this really appeared in front of everyone, the education, natural science, atheism, and even the three views that have been cultivated since childhood, all of these existences that support the existence of a person's personality, all of a sudden completely collapsed and disintegrated. Clean and tidy, crushing, like dominoes that collapse at the touch of a button. Human beings' ability to withstand can sometimes be extremely strong, but sometimes they can be so fragile that they are simply vulnerable. All over the world, major newspapers, major TV stations, and major portals have reported on this matter in many ways, because the changes have already taken place and the riots have already taken shape. Even if the country wants to ban this fact, it is too late. It is better to unblock than to block. During the period when various aspects are competing to report, the state's machinery is running, and all that can be done is to follow the trend and guide it. Keep the development of things under control, and don't let it brew further and produce any unpredictable bad consequences. This is all that can be done, because these are just small problems and small incidents within the country, and the big issues that various countries are currently concerned about are joint forces that are shared and discussed internationally. Loki appeared again, commanding a powerful army of thousands of people. Although this number is insignificant to the population of the world's major powers, it can even be said to be pitifully small. But this time, the countries have a rare unified view, that is, no country dares to underestimate this army, and dares to face and fight alone with this small army, because anyone who dared to do so had been completely wiped out at this time. The enemy only had a few thousand men, but the powerful fighting power they had burst out was not a big threat to even an armed force of tens of thousands of people. To be more precise, there was not even any effective resistance. Chapter 232 System Strategy. Since the New York incident, the World Federation Conference has never stopped. The reason is that the impact of the New York incident is too great and too bad. First, 9 countries with nuclear weapons exploded at the same time, and then the United States was bombed by the returning nuclear bombs again. Then New York disappeared, and 5 nuclear bombs and a hydrogen bomb fell in succession. All the events are concentrated in one. The New York area, which has completely become a forbidden land of death, has long become the focus of attention of countries around the world. Now, the exposure of the online battle video has made people all over the world focus on the outbreak of this incident. New York, the birthplace of the incident, is on the crystallized ground after many nuclear explosions. At this time, there are many researchers wearing thick protective clothing, searching carefully for something regardless of the harsh environment here. In Washington, thousands of kilometers away from the original site of New York, a new war is being staged here. Loki, the reincarnation army led by him, has defeated the armed forces deployed in Washington until they retreated into the Washington City area that is still being evacuated. Call. This is team from Washington, D.C., Requesting support. Requesting support. Command Center. Team B has arrived at the designated location. Oh shit, Command Center. Command Center. Team B has been intercepted. Requesting fire support. Boom boom boom. Da da da. The sound of gunfire and explosions continued incessantly. Loki sneered, standing on a tall building, commanding the overall situation and everything. He was so wise and proud. The powerful combat power of the Reincarnation Legion was enough to make Loki even more powerful. Although Loki was not a tiger, and although the Reincarnation Legion did not belong to him, this power made him very satisfied, because with this powerful army, Loki had the hope of realizing his dream of becoming a king for many years. The war was still going on, and casualties were still increasing. The battlefield in Washington was in full swing, but at this time, Jing had started a new round of closed-door training. The Appalachian Mountains are located in northwest Washington. Because the geological age here is too old, it is enough to be regarded as one of the oldest mountains on Earth, so the terrain here is quite gentle, with few steep peaks. The ancient castle is located on a gentle mountain top with a beautiful environment. It seems that the age of this castle can be traced back hundreds of years ago. Jing, at this time, he was practicing in a newly built secret room in the castle. The previous battles, especially the fight with Ai, made Jing think of many new ideas to improve and integrate. In particular, there is one thing that needs to be tested as soon as possible. With a thought, the tattoo space on Jing's body suddenly moved and reached the back of his hand. Things are not over yet. Jing used the method of creating a split body again, using the arm carrying the tattoo space as the boundary, and separated the original body in the form of a split body. In a breath, there were two Jings in the secret room, and the body with the tattoo space was a split body, and the one without the tattoo space was the real original body. The method is feasible. Jing, who used it successfully, was secretly relieved. The system itself is indeed very powerful, but this has also brought Jing a lot of pressure and constraints. It doesn't mean that you have to be an enemy of the system, but at the very least you can't let others control your destiny. Even if he is not a real human, the system has advantages and disadvantages. With it, Jing will become what he is now and have the opportunity to become a real strong man. But the system also brings an equal degree of restraint and suppression during the hell period. Whether it is every time travel is like exile, or the various restrictions on transmission and strengthening, or even the people who just appeared in the Lonely Lamp universe, that is also one of the various disadvantages brought by the system. And all this is not the most fundamental reason why Jing is so wary of the system. What Jing is guarding against is why the system lied in the previous conversation. Or what is it trying to hide? If this doubt is not removed, don't even think about letting Jing trust the system. Choosing a master and a host are only one word apart, but the meaning is completely different. I have become an intermediate master selector now, but the system has been hiding something. Does this mean that the real master of the system has not really died yet? Suddenly thinking of this, Jing was shocked by his own thoughts. Yes, Yisai's level 5 system can recognize the master. There is no reason why a higher level system cannot do this. In the conversation with the system steward, the steward was vague about this aspect. Does it mean that the real master of this system is not completely dead yet? If this assumption is true, then the current behavior of the system is much easier to understand, or more precisely, it is very reasonable. The former master was seriously injured or on the verge of death. It is more likely that he urgently needs a considerable amount of sus points to heal his wounds or restore his strength. Then, under this premise, the system will unnoticeably deduct sus points on the grounds of equivalent exchange. Therefore, at the end of each time-space shuttle, the system will extract half in advance. Even during the previous system upgrade, it did not forget to use this excuse to deduct points. What's more, during the time and space of Despicable Me, the time and space backlash mentioned by the system consumed a total of tens of thousands of points. Here, it is not difficult to imagine how much water there is in it. The more he thought about it, the colder Jing's face became. It was not because of the points that might be lost, but because of the increasing completeness of this hypothesis. This made Jing, who asked the question, have less and less way to refute it. It can be imagined that if this is really the case, then the appearance of Li Jing, the master of choice, is just a sus material collector that the system is looking for to help the original owner recover. If the original owner really recovers, then Li Jing, as a substitute, will have an end that can be imagined. And it will definitely not be much better. At most, it is just a waste utilization and becomes a soldier under the original owner, and the greater probability is a more straightforward elimination result. No matter what the ending is, it is not what Li Jing expects. The cold light in his eyes is already brewing, and the veins on his clenched fists are bulging. If you want to plot against me, then let's see who can truly survive to the end. Chapter 233, All things return to emptiness. The system, unknown enemies, the lonely lamp universe, these existences that need to be guarded against, or the system's threats are the most direct and the closest. But now, Li Jing can't turn against and provoke trouble first, because if he does that, not only will there be no benefit or help, but he will also put himself in danger one step ahead and can't get out. The system has many means, the specific capabilities are unknown, and there is no way to know how many trump cards it has. And Li Jing himself, the abilities he has, are all obtained under the nose of the system, or cultivated. To be more precise, a large part of Li Jing's ability to get to this point today was cultivated step by the system. Now turning against it is just courting death, and there will be no other results at all. Li Jing let out a slight breath, and had to suppress his thoughts and hide all the things he was considering in the deepest part of his heart. If he was discovered by the system, and then took the lead, then with Li Jing's current means, there is no chance of winning at all, and he will eventually not escape the fate of becoming a puppet of the system. Moreover, the previous system had to choose to cooperate with me because of the lack of energy, that is, sus material. But what about now? Even if I am disabled, it would be easy to find a new master. Thinking of this, Li Jing's heart moved again. Since he could disable himself and find a new master, would the current system already be looking for another master in secret? You know, getting sus material is not as good as hanging on a tree. If I were the system, it would be more than just finding two masters. If conditions permit, the more ways to get sus material, the better. This is to cast a wide net and catch fish. A master pays half of the points. If the number is large, the amount of sus material obtained will naturally be very considerable. The system is not a fool. Of course it will know how to maximize the benefits. This assumption may not be an assumption at all. The system should have started to implement it a long time ago. Thinking that he might be one of the many masters, Li Jing's face changed again. He originally thought that as long as he hid properly, he would be above the system one day, but now it seems that the value of the Master Selector identity card has been reduced a lot, and it is almost dispensable. According to the current situation, we must speed up our own pace. Otherwise, if we wait until the original owner of the system is fully recovered, it will inevitably be a bloody storm. After sorting out these trivial matters and putting them aside, Li Jing calmed down and began to enter the real state of cultivation. It has been half a year since entering this fifth-level space-time. During this period, the hundreds of split bodies separated by Li Jing have never stopped practicing, whether it is physical training, or other spiritual systems and energy systems. The cultivation of hundreds of split bodies is involved. Up to now, it can be regarded as a small achievement and the beginning of a clue. Level 4 cell control can control 100% of the cells in the body. Even if Li Jing's body is stretched straight and made into a straight line, it can be done by circling the earth several times. However, it is useless to do that except that it looks stupid. Although the level 4 superpower cannot achieve true cell regeneration for the time being, it is enough to regenerate broken limbs or recover super fast under great damage. According to this characteristic of his own cells, Li Jing is considering whether this ability can be grafted into the spiritual and energy aspects at the same time. The cultivation system can be roughly divided into three categories, namely spirit, body, and energy, because these are the three most basic elements of the human body. All martial arts systems are based on these three elements as the bearing foundation, and then developed, and extended to other fields. Even the kind of ethereal belief system, law system, and cause and effect system will never deviate from this three-base theory. because all the attack systems that extend from communicating with the outside world, even if they are causal attacks, need a medium and a starting point, and this starting point is the existence of the caster itself, which is also the core area composed of the three basic elements. Spirit, body, and energy are the cornerstones, and causality is regarded as a technique and a skill. What Li Jing has to do now is to perfect his cornerstone system first. Only by laying a good foundation can you build a tall building from the ground and climb to the top of the dome to see the small mountains. The power of nothingness can accommodate everything, including the universe, and it can also destroy everything. Even the universe is no exception. Based on this characteristic of the power of nothingness, Li Jing puts his own cells into the void to hone them, allowing these cells to evolve autonomously. After thousands of metamorphosis, they can survive in the power of nothingness. It is too difficult to achieve this step, but the unique practice developed by Li Jing is just the simplest first step. If you can't do it, then there is no way to talk about the next practice. Li Jing was very ambitious and wanted to solve the problem once and for all. Although the fate of eating too much and becoming fat would not be good, he did not have enough time. He would never be willing to be a loser. Compared with the fate of a loser, Li Jing was willing to take a risk and would never retreat even if he died. All methods return to void was the name Li Jing gave to the newly created technique, which meant that everything would return to the beginning and reincarnation would start again. The first volume was divided into 3 levels and 6 stages, and each level was divided into the initial stage and the great perfection stage. The foundation required for the first level of entry was to be able to withstand the power of nothingness without being hurt. This was also thanks to Li Jing's existence of the all-seeing eye, which could help him control the changes and adjustments of some of the power of nothingness. Otherwise, if someone else were to practice, let alone increase any combat power, it would be very difficult for him to survive. The power of nothingness can carry or destroy, can carry matter and energy, and can also carry the illusory spiritual power. The all methods return to void created by Li Jing uses the power of nothingness as the core, integrating the 3 basic elements of the human body to form a large cycle. Practicing the power of nothingness, this energy is already no less powerful than any energy in the universe, and while operating the power of nothingness, it is equivalent to practicing the body every moment. Because of this element, Li Jing has abandoned the flow of meridians and instead directly transfers energy between cells. Chapter 234, Life and Death. As for the mental power, it can also be carried on in the same way as the operation of the power of nothingness, and it can be cultivated in the body and strengthened from time to time. Moreover, this is only the first level of all laws return to void. When it is cultivated to a high level, the power of nothingness will also be upgraded and merged. At that time, the mental power will coexist with the power of nothingness, becoming a new energy, a martial arts system that belongs to Li Jing himself. Kaka in front of Li Jing, in a special device, a power of nothingness is spreading and corroding everything. Even if this special device that looks like the 8 diagrams furnace is used as a container, it is powerless to carry this power of nothingness that can erase all existence, and it is corroded badly. In the power of nothingness, there is a cell tissue that is still stubbornly transforming. This resistance and transformation, it is unknown how long it has lasted. Li Jing shouted coldly, and once again added a new vitality to the cell tissue in the furnace. Crack under the power of nothingness, let alone cell tissues and special devices, even the space where they exist is being corroded and crackling, as if it will collapse in the next second. Li Jing frowned slightly. The thing he was most worried about was that he couldn't avoid it. All laws return to void was created by Li Jing, and he was naturally the most aware of its disadvantages. For example, if the universe and time represent life, then the opposite power of nothingness represents death and silence. People practice retrograde, so-called longevity and survival, not for death and silence, but in the power of nothingness. The flow of time will not exist, and all life will eventually go to the road of being wiped out. Because of this, the shortcomings of all laws return to void also appeared. Li Jing wanted to evolve cells to be able to survive in nothingness. But this resistance and evolution consumed the power of life. This is equivalent to If you practice the power of nothingness, you still need to use huge vitality as support. Otherwise, the end of practice is just seeking death. Li Jing frowned again, because this matter was like entering a dead end. If he didn't walk out, there would only be one dead end. If he wanted to walk out, he had to give up practicing Allah's return to void and give up this road. He didn't want to, unless it was absolutely necessary. Li Jing would never choose to quit. It was not because he was reluctant to give up the power of nothingness and Allah's return to void, but because he simply didn't want to give up. Changing another road might be easier than this one. For example, if he chose to practice the power of life, these problems would definitely be solved, and there would be no need to make things difficult. However, how could cultivation be a straight line to the end? How could it be smooth sailing all the time? If he gave up this time, what about the next time? Even if he practiced the power of life, wouldn't there be a bottleneck? Li Jing laughed at himself. He was thinking about all these things. It was too far away. It would be better to think about these current problems. Otherwise, Suddenly, Li Jing was slightly stunned. In the Bagua furnace, inside the power of nothingness, on the cell tissue that was wiped out and full of dead air, a small white dot suddenly appeared. The white dot was very small. If Li Jing had not been able to empathize with his own cells even outside, it would not be easy to find this small white dot. What is this? Li Jing's mind was agitated. It was not easy to calm down his heart. The vitality, the extremely powerful vitality, was in the small cell emitting a faint white light. Moreover, this small cell was slowly devouring the dead air on the surrounding cells, and even the ubiquitous power of nothingness was absorbed by it a little bit. Yes, that's right. Li Jing felt it personally and there would be no mistake. This small cell emitting white light was actually devouring the power of nothingness that could erase all existence. And it's not just that. After this small cell swallowed the dead air and the power of nothingness, it actually transformed these forces representing death into vitality in the slow conversion process, and emitted a faint white light to illuminate this dark land. What is this? How is it possible? Li Jing was puzzled. Life turned into death, and death turned into life. Is this the real power of reincarnation? Dark without light, only I shine. Li Jing sank his mind and put all his heart and energy on this mutant cell. When time passed slowly, he didn't know how long it was, until this mutant cell suddenly trembled slightly. One, split into two. Li Jing suddenly woke up. Yes, I understand. I understand completely. The end of vitality is death, and the end of death represents rebirth. Reincarnation is not only carried out by humans, even the entire universe, and even the power of nothingness that includes the universe is no exception. In nothingness, the universe is born, the universe is wiped out, and it returns to nothingness. The power of reincarnation is eternal. All laws return to void is indeed imperfect, because it lacks the most important part, that is, reincarnation. If there is only a single force of death, or only a single force of life, then the result of practicing to the end should be known without thinking, overthrowing and starting over. Li Jing has no regrets. With a flawed technique, no matter how strong it is definitely not a good thing to hurt the enemy and hurt yourself. Li Jing is still deducing new techniques, but the outside world is already in flames. After encountering repeated resistance from ordinary troops, the reincarnation army led by Loki finally took half of the territory of the United States. But it was also at this time that a group of humans called the Earth Guardian organization brought a lot of trouble to Loki's side, because the personnel of this Earth Protector organization are all superpowers with special abilities, controlling fire, controlling ice, speed, steel. The abilities of this organization are endless, and for the reincarnation army with quite powerful combat power, it also caused them a lot of threats and obstacles. More than 7 billion people in the world are all paying attention to this war. The matter has been exposed long ago. Even if the country wants to suppress it, it will never be possible, because there are too many brave people in the world. During the battle between the Reincarnation Corps and the Earth Protectors, most of the time it is very likely to find civilian organizations that spontaneously come to shoot videos, compared to not caring about their lives. These civilians are even more invincible than the army, So the scene that can be seen frequently is that there is still fighting in front, explosions and loud noises, and ordinary people carrying video equipment, or young people who only have a camera that can simply record videos, and even worse, there are students who only hold mobile phones to shoot. In this deadly battlefield, there has never been a lack of their figures, but it is also because of this that those popular battle videos on the internet, those rare images that people talk about with relish, can really be circulated and watched by people. Chapter 235 Never give up easily. Time passed, and soon more than 3 months had passed. The war between the countries of the world and the Reincarnation Corps was in full swing. If the World Federation could not bear to use nuclear weapons again, this war would probably take a long time. The Reincarnation Corps, the dead who were resurrected from the impure world, were not afraid of ordinary gun attacks at all. This was undoubtedly the most fatal point for modern armies whose absolute combat power was above weapons and equipment. The newly emerged Earth Guardian organization, with their supernatural powers, could only cause some obstacles to the Reincarnation Corps, and at most slowed down the pace of Loki leading the army to attack various cities. As for wanting to completely defeat the Reincarnation Corps, it was simply impossible to think about it, because it was impossible to do it. Loki was still looking forward to the king's dream. At the same time, the World Federation also held an emergency meeting again for this incident to discuss the probability of using nuclear weapons to achieve the final victory in the war. At this time, Jing was facing a new round of challenges. Creating a technique is not a simple matter, not to mention a powerful technique that can transform people and make them saints. 3 months is still too short. Jing just sorted out and classified the problems he had figured out 3 months ago, and then thought out the prototype of a new technique. This time, Jing still did not give up the use of the power of nothingness, but according to the theory that solitary yin cannot be born and solitary yang cannot grow, he added a new element to the newly created technique. Looking at the white light that has grown countless times in front of him, Jing felt a little comforted. The cell tissue in front of him that can survive independently is the small mutant cell body that just appeared 3 months ago. From the beginning of the tenacious survival, after 3 months of careful cultivation, the original small cell has now split into millions and tens of millions, and this is under Jing's strict attention to the quality and integrity of each cell, and the division rate of these cells is controlled within a certain range. Otherwise, the white vitality contained in these cells emitting a faint white light is hundreds or thousands of times more than the ordinary green vitality. If the division speed is simply required, then these cells will grow explosively in a geometric state, enough to grow into a behemoth in a short period of time. If the power of nothingness is an extreme symbol of death, then these white vitality has the power to survive from death. Coupled with the unique properties of mutant cells, the two together are enough to counter the powerful energy of nothingness. According to this feature, Jing used all the white energy and the power of nothingness in the newly created practice, operated and adjusted the balance with the power of yin and yang, and used the power of reincarnation as the level of the practice to create a new method of supreme power. Reincarnation of life and death. The power of nothingness carries the soul, the power of life carries the soul, owns one's own delusion, and the power of reincarnation is respected. The conditions for practicing this practice are still as harsh, even more severe than the previous. All methods return to void, and this is just the simplest first layer. Jing needs to replace all the cells in his body with the mutant cells that contain super vitality. To do this, the first step is to be able to operate the power of nothingness in the body, and then form a reincarnation cycle. After absorbing the power of nothingness, super vitality is generated, and the cell tissue worn by the power of nothingness is repaired with super vitality. In this process, Jing's body will become stronger and stronger, and even his mental power is the same. As for the realm division, it will also be broken and then established after the power of nothingness and super vitality are improved again, from life to death, from death to life, and it will be regarded as the next great realm. For this reason, Jing gave it a special name, the life and death stage. When you step onto the life and death stage, you either transform into a stronger one, or die and disappear, and turn into ashes. Jing sat cross-legged on the ground, emitting a faint white light all over his body. The cell tissue containing super vitality has been taken back into his body. With a move of his mind, the mutant cell body has spread out under Li Jing's control, gradually replacing other ordinary cell structures in the body. The human body is indeed very complex, and the number of secret snow areas it possesses is simply innumerable. However, with the ability to control cells, Li Jing can control 100% of the cell tissues in his body. The problems of ordinary people are nothing to him. Time passed slowly, and no one knew how long it took. When Li Jing opened his eyes again, all the cells in his body had been replaced. This was a huge task that was almost unimaginable for others, but Li Jing seemed so natural and convenient to do it with the ability to control cells. The first step was completed, but it was also the simplest and most assured step. But the next step would not be as simple as before. The power of nothingness entered the body, and even in Li Jing's current state, he dared not be negligent or careless. This kind of power was enough to wipe out any power of death that existed in the universe, and it was absolutely impossible to control it as easily as other energies. Crack as expected, Li Jing had just taken the power of nothingness into his body while gritting his teeth. With his powerful body composed of mutant cells, several cracks suddenly appeared in his body like the space before. Snap! Li Jing didn't care, suppressed his mind, put his hands together to form a seal, and his body had already begun to move the still extremely tenacious and completely uncontrollable power of nothingness according to the apparition route and reincarnation of life and death. Difficult, too difficult. Li Jing frowned. Tens of minutes had passed, and the power of nothingness had only moved a small step in his body that was undetectable. Moreover, in this state, the damage caused by the power of nothingness to the cells in the body was far more powerful than imagined. For example, the mutant cells that could survive in the power of nothingness before were destroyed and wiped out one after another at this moment, and even 1 in 100 could hardly do anything. Reincarnation of life and death is simply a perverted martial art that is completely aimed at self-abuse and suicide. It is estimated that if it is printed as a tabloid and distributed to people all over the world, and they are all asked to practice it, there will be 100 deaths if one practices it, and 10,000 deaths if one practices it. There is absolutely no possibility of survival, not to mention that there will be a person who practices this perverted martial art. But Li Jing still won't give up. Even if the road ahead seems hopeless, he will not stop practicing and give up on this martial art. Chapter 236. No success, no regrets and death. Give up. These two words sometimes feel extremely heavy, because the meaning it represents is definitely not as simple as taking a step back. Giving up also means surrender, failure, and even death. The power of nothingness entered the body, and at this time, Li Jing's body was already covered with cracks. There was no part of his face or body that was intact. This situation looked so hideous and terrifying that it made people shudder and their scalps numb. Does it hurt? Deep into the bone marrow. Does it hurt? It's already numb. Li Jing's lips trembled involuntarily. Even if he wanted to use self-control to cut off his own pain nerves, he was powerless at this time and couldn't do it at all. The power of nothingness was too difficult to deal with than imagined. Li Jing had already put all his mind on fighting it. Even if he wanted to move the power of nothingness out of his body first, he was already a little powerless now. Suddenly, Li Jing shouted loudly, and the super vitality in his body was rejuvenated again. With the help of this power, Li Jing pushed the power of nothingness forward a small step along the self-operation route. Don't underestimate this small step. What Li Jing has to do now is to move the power of nothingness along the route of the exercise, and then let this power and the super vitality in the Danshan area concentrate and merge to form a state of balance. At that time, the entry of the life and death reincarnation method will be completed. Now, he can only rely on consuming endurance to push the power of nothingness forward bit by bit. There is no other way to speak of. Even the retreat has been blocked by Li Jing himself. If he fails, he will die without regrets. Li Jing knows what he is doing and what he should do. The current situation is like sailing against the current, with the undercurrents surging. The time left for him to turn the situation around is extremely limited. It can even be said that it has reached a critical moment of life and death. If he still insists on stability, then the transition in the future will cost him his life. Although the enemy hidden in the dark has not shown up, Li Jing, who has cultivated to this level, has already sensed what will happen to him in the future. Although these senses may not be 100% correct, coupled with the calculations and the changes and trends of things, they are enough to make the scale in Li Jing's heart produce a decisive result. Li Jing's teeth were chattering, and his body seemed to be shattered in the next second, which was extremely terrifying. There was no way. He was now consuming the power of nothingness in his body. If he didn't succeed in cultivation, he would be completely shattered by this powerful force. Ah! Another cold shout. The chakra power that originally existed in Li Jing's body had now merged into a force that rushed straight to the back of the power of nothingness. Boom! Li Jing's face turned pale, and under the huge impact, the power of nothingness took another small step forward, and those originally very powerful chakras were also wiped out a lot. Boom! Another strong collision. Blood was already flowing from the corner of Li Jing's mouth, but he didn't care about that at this time. All his mind was focused on fighting the power of nothingness. Boom! The third time. It wasn't over yet, and the fourth and fifth times followed, until he pushed forward all the way, until the huge chakra energy was about to be exhausted, and Li Jing himself was also shaky and extremely embarrassed. There were more cracks on his body, and the largest one went straight from his forehead to his abdomen, cracking, looking extremely scary, as if he was chopped down from above with an axe, and it was very tragic. It was almost, the power of nothingness was almost pushed into the Danshan, forming a state of balance. Li Jing knew that he must not relax at this time. He suddenly raised his spirits, and once again gathered the last of his strength into one. Ah! Boom! Crack! Till the chakra was exhausted, the power of nothingness entered Danshan, and Li Jing's body was shattered by the huge force, and even his left arm was broken, leaving only a layer of flesh and some blue veins. Ha ha ha! Till the Li Jing laughed loudly, completely ignoring the fact that the blood that just spurted out of his mouth was even mixed with some internal organs. Success! He succeeded. The power of nothingness in Danshan formed a rotating balance with the huge vitality as imagined, and did not explode again to cause any harm to the body. This means that the practice of reincarnation of life and death is feasible and can be practiced. Although it has been considered from many aspects, and even in the past 3 months, Li Jing has tried it on the split body countless times, but the success of the original body still surprised him and made him laugh. Because it is too difficult, too easy, reincarnation of life and death was created by Li Jing himself, and it is a systematic practice tailored for himself. If he overturns it again this time, Li Jing really doesn't have much time to reorganize a set of practices. Reincarnation of life and death seems to have not been born for a long time, but it is evolved on the basis of the previous all laws return to emptiness, and just to create this set of practices, Li Jing has spent too much energy and effort. Who exhaling a breath of turbid air? The smile on Li Jing's face has not faded. As for the pain and injuries suffered by practicing this set of practices, it is insignificant to Li Jing, not important at all, as long as it can succeed, even if it is more painful than before. What can it do? If you don't treat yourself harshly, do you have to wait for others to treat you harshly? If that's the case, then Li Jing would rather do it himself. With a thought in his mind, Li Jing's injuries immediately began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although the consumption was extremely large, for this kind of injury, even with the ability of self-control, it can be restored to its original state in a very short time. He adjusted his breath again and recovered from his injuries. At this time, Li Jing only looked a little pale, and there was nothing else wrong. However, the chakra in his body had been consumed. If he wanted to recover, it would take a lot of time again. But Li Jing was no longer prepared to use his main body to cultivate chakra. The split body had many functions, and it was only in the initial excavation stage. Just using the split body to cultivate chakra was a convenient thing that was both worry-free and would not waste time. After consolidating it again, the injury was no longer a big deal. Li Jing stood up and walked out of the secret room. He had not appeared for several months, and he had only heard the Sky report on the situation outside. One was that he did not care about those trivial matters, and the other was that he was at a critical juncture in his cultivation. How could he spend too much thought on these things outside his body? Strolling, Li Jing, dressed in a homely robe, slowly came to the center of the castle. Here was a hall with exquisite decoration and a huge area. It was an extremely luxurious reception place. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 New Changes. Sir. Yes. Li Jing took the glass of wine from the servant and sat on a sofa in the hall to taste it slowly. The furnishings here are luxurious and full of artistic sense. It seems that the original owner should be a real rich man with good taste. The walls, furniture, oil paintings, and even the beautiful paintings on the ceiling are full of superb lean beauty. It is not difficult to guess how much effort and energy the craftsman spent when building this castle. Li Jing paused slightly while holding the wine glass, and then a little smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This smile was gone from the seriousness and coldness of the past, but more of an inexplicable happiness and peace. It was a rare moment. This kind of relaxation and pleasure was indeed a little difficult for Li Jing, who was running around for fighting all day. And in the previous moment, he also saw the gorgeous carvings above his head, so he imagined the craftsmen who were doing these things at the time. Ordinary people have ordinary lives, and they also have their own concentration and yearning. Every bit of this castle is where these craftsmen shed their heart and soul. Compared with them, Li Jing's process of creating the technique is essentially the same as these craftsmen. Perhaps only those masters who are not trapped by life can truly pursue their dreams and ideals. While most ordinary people think most about survival, or better survival, it is estimated that most of the craftsmen who built this castle at the beginning should have come to make money. Li Jing is also the same. He is also a member of the busy army in order to survive. The extremely limited difference is that ordinary people need to work to make money, but Li Jing chooses to work hard to make himself stronger in order not to retreat in his heart. So, although everyone has different looks, hobbies, and experiences, in essence, they are doing the same thing, that is, survive until death. This is also the most fundamental reason why Li Jing has always classified himself as a selfish person, because as long as there is a desire to survive, it is impossible for people to avoid selfishness. Selfishness is not just a derogatory term, but a natural thing, just like the inevitable continuation of the family line. Unless this person becomes a god, then he will neither need to continue the family line nor have the concept of selfishness, because, in essence, he is no longer a human being. Boss. Huh? Danyan suddenly spoke, interrupting Li Jing's thoughts. What's the matter, boss? The situation outside has changed. An army was directly teleported to the earth. It seems that it should be the Asagad realm to rescue the Thunder God, and not only that, in the outer space of the earth, there is also a space fleet whose specific information is unknown. I also found some information because I searched the warships they sent to the earth to explore the way, so I followed the clues and found some information. Oh? Li Jing was slightly stunned. It was not uncommon for people from the Asagad realm to come. It was within his expectations. But what about the outer space fleet? What's going on? Show the video. Yes, boss. DD. The sky popped up with three-dimensional image, and the image showed a very strange single-soldier flying warship. Its shape was somewhat similar to that of a shark. It was extremely fast. It rushed into the atmosphere in just a few seconds and then disappeared without a trace. The picture turned again, and the shark-shaped warship appeared again. This time it should have completed its mission and was rushing out of the atmosphere and heading towards the outer space of the Earth. The time of the picture was very short, but at the end, a dense fleet image like locusts appeared. This scene only lasted for a short second. When the shark warship entered an existence that seemed like an energy shield, the picture disappeared. That's all? Li Jing frowned. The function of the sky is indeed powerful, but so far, it can only operate inside the planet. As for outer space, judging from the evolution speed of the sky, it is estimated that it will take a lot of time. Yes, Boss. The other party has some kind of high-tech defense system. My signal transmission can't penetrate it at all. Unless we can intercept one of their warships, I can rely on their contact information to conquer their system from the inside. Da Li Jing tapped his wine glass with his fingers. This fleet looks extraordinary. What is its origin? And what is their purpose in coming to Earth during this period? Purpose. This kind of existence generally has only two aspects. One is people, and the other is things. What on earth can attract such forces? Cosmic cube, ether particles, or other treasures that I don't know about? As for people, who can attract powerful forces outside the earth? Could it be me? Huh? Suddenly thinking of this, Li Jing was shocked. Yes, it is very likely to be the case. Although it seems unreasonable, Li Jing himself has no sins against other forces outside the earth and this universe except the Asa divine realm. But in Li Jing's consideration, because of the incident of the Infinity Stones, he should have been involved in the competition of the major forces in this universe without knowing it. It's not just a simple delusion, there is a great chance that it will be so. The Infinity Stones, it is not an exaggeration to call them the most powerful weapons in the universe. 3. More than half of the Infinity Stones appeared on the Earth at the same time. It is estimated that the Earth at this time has been monitored layer by layer, and has become the most central battlefield for the major forces in this universe to exchange power. Li Jing, he is an outsider, not controlled by any force, and at this time, the Infinity Stones, except for the one on Loki's scepter, the other two are with him. To say that there is no one behind the appearance of the Infinity Stones? To say that the Infinity Stones fell into the hands of an irrelevant person, and those behind the scenes had no reaction? Li Jing would never believe this kind of calculation, because if the owner behind the Infinity Stones is himself, then calculating the cause and effect, it is time to make some reactions at this moment. Li Jing stopped the movement of his fingers and stood up. Regardless of whether these doubtful calculations are correct or not, at least some precautions should be taken. Sky, activate the backup program and keep control of the world's nuclear weapons systems at all times. And, Li Jing paused slightly. Chapter 238 Battle of Houston. Where is the new team now? Boss, the new team is currently replacing the people in power in various countries. Do you want to call them back? No need. Li Jing waved his hand slightly. Notify them to make preparations. When necessary, they can have enough military power and voice in the international arena. Okay, boss, I'll notify them. Yeah, Li Jing nodded slightly. Boss, what about Loki? Do you want to notify them too? Them? Li Jing sneered slightly. No need. With an Infinity Stone outside, I can buy more time. Notify the Cobra members outside and let them gather at Loki's location. When necessary, they can join the battlefield and don't let the war end too early. Yes, boss. Li Jing nodded slightly again, turned around and walked towards the direction of the training chamber. In order to obtain the genes of the superpowers distributed all over the world, Li Jing had sent out hundreds of third-generation members of the 8 divisions, and then sent many more people again, including members of the original Akatsuki organization, Kakazu and Huden. In this level 5 space and time, this unique competition is about to draw the final curtain and end it. The Infinity Stones have been obtained, and the newly created practice reincarnation of life and death has also been initially successful. In addition to the dispensable space-time bridge that has not been established, there are other existences, such as the remaining 3 Infinity Stones. Li Jing has other plans for this. Returning to the secret room, Li Jing continued to practice. At the same time, thousands of miles away from Loki, a new war broke out. Houston, Texas, the 4th largest city in the United States, the largest economic center on the Gulf Coast, covers an area of 1,440 square kilometers. Loki, standing on the top of the tallest building in the city, his face is really not very good at this time. He has spent all his efforts and spent several months to just gain a foothold in this city, and he has ushered in a 3-way attack. Houston's local military, the Earth Guardian organization's superpower army, and the Asgard that just appeared to rescue Thor, especially this Asa realm, which has an endless supply of combat power, sticking to people like a damn bug, and it has come to the Earth with such a large army, just to rescue Thor alone. Thinking of this, Loki's expression became even more ferocious, and he raised his head and suddenly looked at Thor not far away. Is this the difference between a biological son and an adopted son? It's damned. Don't look at me with that look, Loki. Everything is your own choice. Thor looked straight at Loki, not giving in. This series of events happened, and after a few months of getting along, Loki's changes have made him completely disappointed. Cruel and unscrupulous. As long as it is a method that is beneficial to the advancement of the army and can be helpful, Loki will never be vague and dare to use it all. Shut up. Choose? Of course I will make my own choice. Don't forget your current identity. Loki waved the scepter in his hand, and the violent look on his face was no longer hidden. Prisoner, it's wishful thinking for the Asgard to save you from me. Really? I don't think so. Thor shook his head slightly. Loki, as a brother, I will advise you for the last time, turn back, otherwise, you will not have a good end. Enough. Loki shouted coldly, don't preach to me for my own good, this will only make me feel more disgusted. Turn back? Why should I turn back? The throne of the king belongs to me, always, it is waiting for me in front, and it is impossible for me to stop. With a cold snort, Loki turned his head and stopped looking at Thor, because he was afraid that if he looked at him again, he would not be able to help but push this damn guy down. Full of benevolence and morality, full of consideration for others, it is simply a series of nonsense that is worse than shit. Realm of the gods, king, go to hell. These fake things should have been destroyed long ago. What a bullshit king. Loki doesn't care about this fake throne at all. What he cares about is that he can step onto the top of the Asgard one day and destroy everything with his own hands. Destruction, including the Lord of Asgard, Odin. This adoptive father who gave Loki a lifetime of pain is the target that Loki wants to destroy in the end. As for the others, even the throne of the king is just a stepping stone to gather strength. Loki sneered, raised the scepter in his hand, and waved it gently. Attack! Roar, roar, roar. More than 10 beast roars responded one after another, covering all the more than 10 directions around the building. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud noises came, and the ground shook like this. A new round of war broke out again. On the other side of Loki's army, the army of the Asgard led by the Asgard warrior Volstagg was also ready to fight. With Volstagg's order, the army of the Asgard also began to march and attack. Boom, boom, boom. The earth trembled, and the two sides began to sprint 1,000 meters apart. The two torrents collided fiercely in a very short time. Boom, boom, boom. Kill, die, puff, swish. The shots of killing shook the sky, and the melee had already broken out. More than 10 huge spirit beasts led by the Reincarnation Legion crushed all the way, leaving only a blood-red color on the ground. There was nothing else except corpses. This powerful force, this strong impact, even the brave and warlike Ezra could not resist it at all. And when the impact of more than 10 spirit beasts was weak, the counterattack of the Asgard warriors really began. The Asgard warriors who were not afraid of death, each of them was extremely powerful and fearless of life and death. When they swung their weapons at close range, they were all extremely cruel, regardless of their own life and death. Even with bare hands, they fought desperately and dared to fight hand-to-hand with the enemy. They would not hesitate to use fists, kicks, teeth, and any weapons they could use. Even if it was a huge spiritual beast several dozen feet tall, with such fierce weapons hanging all over its body, it could make the spiritual beast roar continuously and be in a mess. Buildings collapsed, the ground cracked, beasts roared, and people were killed and wounded. This was an extremely tragic melee. The number of people participating in the battle on both sides had reached tens of thousands. At this moment, many forces were paying attention to the scene of continuous fighting and increasing corpses. The World Federation and various countries were watching this scene with the help of satellite images. The Earth Guardian organization, their people were also in the city of Houston. In addition to the Ezra Realm and the Reincarnation Legion, the Ability Alliance might be the force closest to the battlefield. Chapter 239, Destruction and Reconstruction. There is another party, and this force is far beyond the Earth's space. In the darkness, there is silence, and dense space battleships are arranged, as terrible as locusts entering the country. The composition of this fleet is that even the smallest space battleship is more than 1,000 meters long. As for the center of the fleet, it is a huge monster like a mountain. This battleship is as black as ink, and there is no trace of reflected light. Its appearance is like an extremely huge giant beehive. There are many hollows in the beehive, and warships are constantly shuttling back and forth. It seems that this should be the command center of the entire battleship corps. Inside this behemoth, in one of the control rooms, several stereoscopic imaging devices are playing some pictures at this time. As expected, the picture shows the war scene that is happening in the city of Houston on Earth. What's more, a green palm suddenly appears and presses lightly on the stereoscopic image. The picture being played is immediately frozen, and only a person is revealed in the paused picture. It was Loki, or more precisely, the scepter in Loki's hand. The mind gem, its unique light, even in this paused picture, was so dazzling and charming. With a whisper, a strange man with green skin appeared. He frowned slightly, raised his fingers and operated on a device in front of him. For a moment, there was only a series of light sounds in the quiet room. Snap! Far above the earth, the picture being played in a secret room suddenly disappeared, as if it was cut off by someone. Boss, the other party has been prepared, and this is the only step they can take in a short time. Moreover, the Pathfinder we intercepted before. I guess the other party should have noticed it now. Li Jing nodded slightly, but frowned unconsciously. The scene he saw before was a tiny picture captured in a very short time after Li Jing captured a Pathfinder warship of the other party and then conquered the internal system of the other party through the Sky, the Hive warship, the fleet of ships, and the strange green weirdo whose origin is unknown. It is obvious that the other party has been prepared for all this. Otherwise, the other party would not have discovered the secret of Loki's scepter as soon as he came up. Who is it? Which force sent the army? Li Jing once again called up the information about the Marvel world in the Sky. While browsing carefully, he used the only partial information to infer the clues that the force might be verified. The Marvel universe is indeed too big, and there are countless forces from all sides. Although there are many races with green skin, it is impossible to infer them based on the only clues at present. Li Jing frowned slightly. The other party's ethnic origin is not his first purpose, but the person behind the scenes of this fleet is the answer that Li Jing urgently needs. His fingers paused slightly, and the information on the light screen in front of Li Jing was paused on a text description. The Chitauri army, the main villain in the New York War, does not belong to the 9 kingdoms of the Marvel world, nor to any planet. It is precisely because of this that this wild army is the real reason why Loki dares to challenge the Avengers directly, because as long as the time and space tunnel opened by the cosmic cube is kept open, the appearance of the Chitauri army will continue, and it will continue. In addition, the leader of the Chitauri army, who is also the initiator of this incident, is Thanos. This last sentence made Li Jing frown again when he saw this. Although the information found on the original Earth network may not be accurate, there are many plots about the Marvel world, and these network information can still be used as reference materials to infer some things. For example, the latest space forces that appeared this time, their goal is obviously to come to the Infinity Stones on the Earth. Let's not talk about whether they have other purposes. Just this one alone is enough to explain many problems. Possessing the information of the Infinity Stones and knowing the current situation of the Infinity Stones, it means that they have been paying attention to the events that happened on the Earth for a long time before. In addition, if the Chitauri army really belonged to Thanos, then it would not be difficult to guess the master behind this newly appeared army. Turning off the data and calming down, Li Jing put aside these trivial matters. He sat cross-legged on the ground and slowly entered the state of cultivation again. Reincarnation of life and death. Li Jing is just getting started. Now he has formed a balance between the power of nothingness and super vitality. When moving the Zushin, he will also operate these two energies at the same time. Although it is much easier than when he just practiced before, it takes a lot of time to complete each Zushin. This is also because the two energies in his body are too advanced. Now the amount of these two energies is still small. During the operation, Li Jing's body can also be tempered to be stronger. Otherwise, If the two energies are strengthened to a certain extent, then Li Jing's current body alone will not be able to resist the erosion and irrigation of these two energies. Even if it is vitality, absorbing too much and not being able to bear it is also a kind of damage, and it will even make people die faster and faster than the power of death. Wearing black clothes with golden patterns, his face was expressionless and his eyes were closed. Li Jing's mind was now focused on the circulation of energy in his body. The power of nothingness destroyed the road ahead, and the super vitality repaired it later, moving forward all the way, moving the Zushin. The theory of reincarnation of life and death is very simple, that is, to break and then build, first destroy, then build. It will only make the high-rise building of oneself more and more stable and powerful. During the period of moving the Zushin, the power of nothingness and the super vitality will also be honed to be more pure, and finally after being strong to a certain extent, they will be updated and replaced, and regarded as the realm of the life and death stage of each level of the practice. But now, Li Jing still doesn't know how far away he is from the first level of the life and death stage, and how much time it will take. Li Jing's retreat again and not asking about worldly affairs has no effect on the increasingly fierce war in the outside world. Houston, this modern large city, has become shaky and embarrassed after experiencing a series of baptisms of war. Up to now, the war between the reincarnation army represented by Loki and the Azure realm has just lasted for less than 2 days. Because of the heavy casualties suffered by the Azure realm, although they are eager to fight the enemy again, they have to suspend the truce and transmit messages to the headquarters of the realm again, in an attempt to send additional troops in the shortest time. Chapter 240 Ex-Mutants. But before the Asura's troops could wait for their own people to come to support them, the army led by Loki once again crushed them. This time the battle was even more tragic. After just a few charges and fights, the Asura's troops were slaughtered and there were not many left. At the critical moment, when Loki wanted to wipe out all the Asura's troops in one go, the Earth Guardian superpower army rushed into the battlefield and disrupted Loki's plan. A three-way melee broke out. The Reincarnation Legion, the Asura, and the Earth Guardians fought each other, and then it evolved into a 2-on-1 battle. The Reincarnation Legion faced the two powerful forces alone. Kill, kill, charge, kill. After gathering the new troops, the Asura, together with the superpower army of the Earth Guardian Alliance, sprinted towards the Reincarnation Legion where Loki was. Boom boom boom, the earth trembled, and the shouts shook the sky. Houston, a large city that had become a battlefield ruin, could only choose to be submerged, trampled, and destroyed by the torrent of people. The Reincarnation Corps, facing the oncoming army, showed no sign of panic. With a few swish sounds, more than a dozen fully equipped soldiers instantly appeared at the front of the team. Ready. Earth Escape Combined Attack, Earth Flowing River. Yes, yes, yes. Tilda. More than a dozen soldiers responded, forming seals together, and their chakras were running, and they suddenly pressed their hands on the ground. Snap, 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 snap. Tilda. Earth Escape, Earth Flowing River. Everyone shouted, and their voices emerged into one. Under the explosion of their energy, the ground began to shake abnormally in an instant, and then gathered to form an extremely large torrent of mud. Whoosh. The muddy torrent, raising a wave several tens of meters high, rushed directly towards the oncoming troops of the God Realm and the Superpower Legion. Boom. It was like a mountain collapse, or like a flood. As soon as they came into contact, with a loud bang, the army of the Asgard and the Superpower Legion of the Earth Guardian Alliance were already washed away. Puff. The screams continued. Many people were even hit and drowned by this powerful force just after they came into contact with the mud torrent. It was a dilemma between life and death, and their bodies could not be found. On the high building, Magneto, Eric Lanchier, was watching the battlefield below. At this time, his face was not very good. Since the Golden Gate Bridge incident 2 years ago, that is, the incident about the X-gene antidote, he and his old rival Charles have disappeared for nearly 2 years. This time, because of the disappearance of multiple X-gene carriers all over the world, Eric had to choose to go out with his old rival and partner Charles after decades of fighting. Professor X, Charles, who had experienced death and had to rely on his twin brother's body to revive. Magneto, Eric, who was injected with the X gene antidote, lost his ability, and was suppressed for more than a year before gradually recovering. The two gathered the X-capable people who voluntarily followed and jointly established the Earth Guardian Alliance, but they didn't expect that after joining the battlefield, they lost a lot of brothers, and the enemy was unexpectedly strong and difficult to chew. Weird attacks, unkillable enemy troops, everything was like a boulder pressing on Eric's heart. Maybe the older people get, the more nosy they become, looking at the tragic massacre below and listening to the dying screams of his brothers. Even Eric, who had seen too many separations of life and death, was slightly twitching at this time, and obviously moved with compassion. Eric, it's not the right time yet. Magneto just moved his footsteps, and Charles, who had known him for decades, already knew what he wanted to do. He just couldn't bear to see the tragedy below and wanted to take action early. Eric's deeply hidden feelings were also the real reason why Charles had fought with him for decades and never really wanted to kill him. Because as early as when the two just met, Charles had already discovered these things in Eric's mind. Charles, compared to you, maybe I am indeed much older. Let your people take action, otherwise you should know that you can't stop me. Eric stopped, but did not look back at Charles sitting in a wheelchair. They have already set off. This time the enemy is extraordinary. Eric, it's better for you to wait before taking action. After a little persuasion, Charles didn't say anything more. He had already released his mental power, and no one could understand everything that happened on the battlefield better than him. Thousands of enemy troops, not a single one was a normal life form. Even those huge monsters were the same dead things. Yes, dead things, like puppets. The enemy army, even if their spirits are destroyed, it cannot stop their physical actions. Because Charles has already tried it, his brows were also furrowed. This kind of weird situation was the first time Charles encountered it even with his many years of experience in battle. The current situation was just like a dog biting a hedgehog, and he felt like he had no way to bite it. The current situation of the enemy army is that the spiritual existence and the physical body are divided into two unrelated areas. Although the spirit can control the physical activities, it is not 100% control. If the enemy's spiritual existence is replaced by someone, it will also activate other devices in the enemy's body, so that the enemy's body can be controlled by other commands like a puppet. Like the enemy's weird attack, Charles knows nothing about the other composition methods of this Death Legion. If he can't find a solution as soon as possible, then relying on the enemy's immortal ability, it is just a war of attrition, and the X-Alliance can't afford it at all. This is why Charles did not agree with Magneto's action now. Before finding a way to solve the enemy's immortality, even if Magneto's combat power is high, he will inevitably be worn out and exhausted by the enemy when he enters the battlefield, and he will not be able to play any helpful role at all. What kind of ability is it? Charles frowned, and the scope of his mental power expanded again, trying to find a solution to the problem in the shortest possible time. Indeed, the technique of reincarnation has been completely transformed under the full development of Jing, or Orochimaru, and Kabuto Yakushi, and it is very different from the past. In particular, the talisman that controls the soul of the dead has been developed into a complete system after several updates. Even if the soul of the reincarnated character is completely destroyed, the reincarnated character will not lose the ability to act in a short time due to the lack of soul. Chapter 241 Magneto. The battlefield in Houston is still going on. The war between the three parties has never stopped. With the reinforcement of the Asa Divine Realm several times, the number of casualties has exceeded tens of thousands. There is also the X-Alliance. The war of attrition has been going on for 7 consecutive days. Even with the strong support of many countries behind them, the number of casualties of the superpower personnel has exceeded thousands. Jing is still in seclusion, and the war in Houston has never really stopped. As time passes, more than a month has passed again. This is a real war of attrition. As time goes by, only life can fill the gap. Houston has now become a ruined place flooded with corpses. Desolate, dilapidated, smelly corpses, rocks, ruins. Looking around, this former modern large city has now withered like yesterday's yellow flowers. becoming a post-war relic that can be trampled on by anyone. Kill, kill, impact, boom, boom, boom. The war started again. On the ruined streets, on the ground full of potholes and cracks, the three armies suddenly appeared and rushed together. The torrent of tens of thousands of heads suddenly collided with each other again. Dang dang, weapons collided. Kai kai, the sharp blade entered the body. The melee intensified, and the fighting was endless. They were used to the months-long war of attrition. Not fighting hard was equivalent to suicide. In this tense and depressing battlefield, no one would think too much about the enemy in front of them. All they could do was to use the most truthless way in the next second to exchange for the opportunity to try to survive. Charles, we have lost too many brothers. Today may be the last battle. Haven't you found a way to solve the problem yet? Eric said coldly on the top of the tall building. This attitude was more like a suppressed and angry low roar. Charles shook his head slightly. He frowned, not because he had not found the key to the problem, nor did he know that the current situation was extremely urgent. But all this anxiety was useless, and it could not solve the current emergency at all. There are dozens of real commanders in the enemy army. The moment I control their spirits, they will reveal their own flaws. At that time, it will be up to you, Eric, Charles said softly. Although he had found the key to the problem, he did not show even the slightest joy of defeating the enemy. Charles, based on Eric's decades of understanding of this old opponent, he must have some worries that have not been resolved. Sure enough, Charles spoke again. Eric, even if the opponent's commanders are resolved, according to my judgment, these dead armies will not stop attacking. And what? Eric frowned. Charles did not immediately answer his old friend's question, but turned his head slightly and looked at other areas outside the battlefield. The number of enemy troops is far more than what you see, old friend. Maybe we have to fight desperately again this time. Hey Tilda, Eric smiled slightly. I am really old. I didn't expect you to say such a thing. Fight desperately. In our life, when have we ever lacked such a situation? Charles nodded gently and smiled. Yes, I am lucky to be able to live until now. I can fight for my homeland again, and you and I are working together. There is nothing good about it. Charles, start. Eric interrupted Charles' words softly, because he knew what this old friend was going to say. There was no need. It's better to survive and listen. Okay. Charles didn't say anything more. He nodded slightly and closed his eyes. The huge mental power had already enveloped the battlefield below in an instant. As a fourth-level mutant, Charles has extremely powerful abilities. Among the many mutants, he is also at the top of the pyramid. For the operation and control of the mind, no one on this planet can have more say than him. Buzz tilted the invisible spiritual stand spread out, and before the dozens of Cobra officers on the ground could react, Charles instantly controlled all their thoughts and actions. At this moment, for dozens of Cobra officers, it was as if time had stopped, and their thoughts stagnated in an instant, while the others around them were not affected at all, and they were still doing what they were supposed to do. Whoosh! Suddenly, strong winds came from all directions, and the tops, bodies, and even feet of dozens of Cobra officers were immediately blocked and covered by thousands of sharp steel bars. It was Magneto, Eric, whose figure was floating in the air, and his black robes fluttered in the strong wind. For a moment, it was as if a god had descended to the world, and people could not blaspheme at will. With a slight sneer, Eric, who was also a level 4 mutant, stretched out his palm and gently grasped it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Thousands of sharp steel bars suddenly rushed down at dozens of Cobra commanders. Boom boom boom! Smoke and dust rose up, and there were loud noises. For a moment, the dust was flying and covered the sky, and the miserable fate of dozens of Cobra commanders could be imagined. Time passed slowly, until Eric shot all of the steel bars under his control, and until the dust in this area settled down again. The people who stopped fighting saw the fate of dozens of people who were hit. Rotten meat and mud were mixed together, and it was impossible to tell what kind of existence they originally looked like. Eric sneered again. The fourth-level magnetic field control ability was enough to make him a real god in this modern steel city. In terms of attack power alone, it was difficult for anyone on this planet to be stronger than him. Charles, is that all? Suddenly Eric was slightly stunned. At this moment, the broken corpse on the ground, which had been pierced into rotten meat by tens of thousands of steel bars, twisted again like a living thing. Seeing this weird scene, let alone Magneto who controlled metal, even Charles, who was still in the wheelchair on the roof, had to frown. Before, at the moment when Magneto attacked, Charles had already withdrawn his mental power, and even though he conquered the minds of dozens of Cobra officers, he did not find any useful memories. This was obviously tampered with. So now in this weird situation, Charles had no clue and had no idea where to start. Kaka the bones recovered, the flesh twisted, and in less than a few dozen seconds, the bodies of dozens of Cobra officers on the ground had already returned to human form. Chapter 242, Sky Catastrophe. Looking for death, Magneto was in midair, holding his hands in the air. The steel bars on the ground suddenly trembled, and then quickly combined and moved in an instant. Kakaka for a moment, the bodies of dozens of Cobra officers were like magnets, and thousands of steel bars all approached and stuck to them. "Ah!" Magneto shouted coldly. His palms were already clenched, and those steel bars were compressed together in an instant, forming a huge steel sphere. Boom! The sphere was so big that it was 10 feet in radius. When it landed, it splashed a little dust. No matter how weird your ability is, you can't escape the blockade of this steel cage. Magneto sneered. "Eric, don't be careless." Charles' brows still didn't relax, because in his perception, the dozens of lives in the steel sphere had not really disappeared. To be more precise, these dozens of personnel, after enduring Magneto's 2 strong attacks, did not suffer much damage at all. Indeed, the Cobra officer's body is transformed by nanoworms. Even if the physical attack is strong, it is difficult to pose a fatal threat to such an existence. This does not mean that the nanoworms are not afraid of any physical attack, but if they cannot be completely eliminated in a short period of time, even if only a small part is left, the nanoworms will recover in a very short time. And even the brain and internal organs of the Cobra officer will not be an exception, because when the 8 divisions were just developed, Jing had already considered all these problems, and with the growing strength of the Cobra organization, more and more abundant resources, and the increasing perfection of nanoworm technology, these problems that existed have been well solved one by one. The brain has always been the most complex area of the human body, and it is also the location of the legendary God's Forbidden Zone. Relying on modern medical technology, it is impossible to make any changes to the human brain. But Jing is different. He has rich resources that ordinary people can hardly imagine, as well as advanced technologies and various technologies of other systems that are difficult to understand in modern society, such as superpowers, or other cultivation systems. These existences are all knowledge powers beyond scientific theory, relying on the analysis of cell controllability, relying on the spiritual energy of the chakra system, including even the various secret methods of the Uzumaki clan to store souls. These technologies are integrated and loaded onto the nanoworm technology. As a result, the nanoworms in each Cobra officer's body can record the physical information of the personnel. After the Cobra officer is injured, even if his head is chopped off, the nanoworms in his body will immediately start the rescue program and restore the injured part of the body according to the original recorded data. And the soul of the Cobra officer will only be hidden in the core of the system composed of nanoworms in an instant because of the excessive trauma, and then fall into a deep coma. When the nanoworms restore the body, the soul of the body will be released and regain control of its own body. This technology seems cumbersome and difficult to control, but as long as the program is set for the nanoworms in the officer's body, everything will be convenient and simple, and there will be no excessive waste of output. Kaka the continuous sounds and vibrations were like the army of ants and insects gnawing at something. Magneto, who was in midair, frowned, because he had already felt that these sounds and vibrations all came from inside the steel sphere. Too weird, too difficult to deal with. Are these enemies so hard to kill? It didn't take long before the 3 armies broke out in a melee again, and the giant steel sphere cast by Magneto was also gnawed into thousands of holes by the nanoworms and was in tatters. Cock-a-boom! The steel cage collapsed, and what appeared in front of everyone were dozens of Cobra officers who had completely recovered as before, without any loss. Magneto's face was extremely ugly. He raised his hand slightly and wanted to attack again. Eric. Suddenly, Charles on the roof spoke, and after he interrupted Magneto, he did not turn his head to look at Magneto. What? Magneto frowned slightly, followed Charles's line of sight and looked up at the sky. Under the clear sky, nothing happened. Charles, what's going on? Here we go. Eric, maximum defense. What? Magneto was even more puzzled. Even so, after decades of friendship, he still acted according to his old friend's words. With a rumbling sound, all the steel materials in the dilapidated buildings around were emptied and moved by Magneto to form a huge circular shield around him. Not enough. Charles' words startled Magneto, but before he could continue to take action, Charles' next sentence came out. Too late. As if to confirm Charles' inference, a little light suddenly appeared in the endless clear sky. How fast is the speed of light? Originally just a small ball of light, it became a huge beam of light in an instant, and suddenly came to everyone's head. Boom! With a loud bang, without any warning, the beam of light went straight to the sky, and the inexplicable attack suddenly fell on the battlefield in Houston in a catastrophic situation. The light circle exploded, and the area within a radius of 10 kilometers was covered. Under this attack, all the high-rise buildings, structures, and even ruins seemed to be evaporated and disappeared without a trace. Time passed slowly, and the light column disappeared. The sky returned to calm again. If it weren't for the huge scar left on the ground, the previous attack seemed to be illusory, which was simply unbelievable. Because it was too sudden, no one would have thought that such a disaster would appear. And it was so fast that people had no time to make any effective defense. Under the smoke and dust, there was an open space, and a huge pit as deep as 100 meters seemed to be formed by nature. The breeze blew and revealed the fog here, and those things that originally existed had already disappeared at this moment, including tens of thousands of lives. The Asgard, thousands of Asgardian warriors, were annihilated. The Alliance, thousands of mutants were all killed, and not even a corpse was left. The Reincarnation Army, thousands of troops that were not afraid of most physical attacks, were destroyed. This kind of annihilation attack, even if the nanoworms had a higher repair ability, they had no time to do anything. As soon as it happened, Jing, who was thousands of kilometers away, had already sensed it. He was practicing in the secret room and suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 243 For an invasion. With a cold look in his eyes, Jing already knew what happened to the Reincarnation Corps. With the sky attack, there was no need to guess who the culprit was. Outer space forces, space battleships, green-skinned weirdos, everything that happened before, they couldn't escape the connection. Jing's expression became even colder. His original intention of opening up the Houston battlefield was to release a few smoke bombs to create chaos, so that the Reincarnation Corps led by Loki could attract the attention of the major forces, and then extend his own cultivation for a while. But he didn't expect that this foreign warship would be so cruel and ruthless. Without any consideration, it directly wiped out all the troops on the Houston battlefield. What's the purpose? Could it be that they knew that the Infinity Stones would not be destroyed so easily, so they attacked directly without fear? HMPH. Jing snorted coldly. Danyan, how much loss did the Reincarnation Army suffer? Boss, the previous attack was too sudden. Not only were the 4,000 Reincarnation Army soldiers who were fighting wiped out, but also 2,000 soldiers who were hiding in the surroundings and had not yet taken action were wiped out. The news was not very optimistic. Jing's face became even colder. He was not sad because of the loss of troops, but because the development of things was somewhat out of control. This kind of trend must be nipped in the bud. Send a copy of the information obtained before to S.H.I.E.L.D., and also give a copy to each country. Inform the new team and let them add a hand behind the scenes. I want to expose this alien fleet to the human beings on Earth completely. Boss, you want the local forces to test it first, right? Why don't I send the information to major portals? In this way, even civilians will know the seriousness of the matter, and then each country will not be able to hide and there will be no way to delay time. In addition, The scene of the alien fleet attacking Houston has also been photographed by the satellite that is always paying attention to Houston. I will package this information and send it out, so that I will be more confident. Yes, Li Jing nodded slightly. Danyan's consideration is indeed very thoughtful. Just do as you say. Okay, boss. Danyan's voice fell and then disappeared. It was obvious that he went to do something, and Li Jing also calmed down and entered the state of cultivation again. Although this method of reincarnation of life and death was created by Li Jing himself and tailored for his own cultivation system, it does not mean that Li Jing can reach the peak of reincarnation of life and death in one step. On the contrary, let alone how fast the cultivation speed is, even if Li Jing personally practices the method he created for himself, the speed is extremely limited and slow. There is no way. Li Jing has just started. The first step is to nourish the body with the practice and nourish the practice with the body. It can also be commonly known as the running-in period. What Li Jing has to do is to let the body get familiar with the two powerful energies in the body, and then further adapt to it, and even unite them into one. This step is also the most tedious and time-consuming stage for getting started with the practice. Otherwise, the body is still rejecting the power of nothingness, or even the overly powerful super vitality. In the battle, let alone leapfrogging, it is estimated that even the most ordinary combat power will be hindered. In other words, if Li Jing wants to fully exert his own combat power, or let the body no longer reject the two energies, it will take some time to run in and adapt. With his eyes tightly closed and his face expressionless, Li Jing had entered a deep state of cultivation. The power of nothingness and super vitality, the two energies, rotated in his danshan in a yin-yang pattern, and then began to travel around the body in the special route of life and death reincarnation. One circle completed, another circle, one completed, another completed, endlessly, without stopping. Destruction, reconstruction. The theory of life and death reincarnation is very simple, but it is very effective. Li Jing's body is constantly getting stronger every moment. As long as the practice does not stop, this state will continue. Even Li Jing's mental power will change accordingly and be strengthened from time to time. Li Jing is still cultivating, but at this time, the outside world is like a frying pan and has started a major riot. Civilian websites, government official websites, and the group of people who hold power in major countries received a piece of information almost at the same time. This information, without anyone receiving it, is automatically played privately, and the website situation is automatically pinned to the top. For a time, this information has entered the eyes of too many people. In the data, there were warships like locusts, pathfinders with extremely fast speeds, green-skinned aliens, and until the last scene, the disappearance of tens of thousands of people on the battlefield in Houston, there was very little data, just a few minutes. After reading the data, everyone took a deep breath and felt that the air above them suddenly became oppressive. Danger was so close. It broke out. This time it really broke out. The internet, media, newspapers, radio, and all information dissemination agencies were all talking about the new incident for a while. Not only that, as more and more people knew about it, the matter had intensified without verification. All over the world, not only billions of civilians continued to pay attention to this matter, but even various national institutions began to run fast like machines. The country would naturally not be as hot-headed as an individual, but they did not lack a sense of crisis, and they also knew what this incident represented. If the situation was verified, it would be a major event related to the survival of mankind, and there was no room for negligence or carelessness. The time was not very long, from the outbreak of the information to the verification of the authenticity of the incident by the country. It was only less than an hour. The reason why they could react so quickly this time was that there were far more than one satellites watching the city of Houston. Although the Earth Army did not completely participate in the battlefield of the three forces of the Reincarnation Legion, it was impossible for them to withdraw so easily. The light column coming from the sky, the information captured was far more than what was in the hands of the Sky Eye. Powerful countries, such as the United States, had several copies of this information in their hands alone. Needless to say, there was no need to find the source of the transmitted information. The biggest threat at present had already shifted from the destroyed Reincarnation Legion to the newly appeared alien warships. The World Federation was held again, and this time, from the participation of more than a dozen countries at the beginning. It was directly expanded to all countries in the world. Humanity, home, and Earth, are going to really hold together, because the real foreign enemy has appeared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244, Trends of Various Countries. Command Center. Command Center. CVZ-21 Class Aircraft Carrier requests to take off. CVZ-21 Class Aircraft Carrier requests to take off. Permit to take off. Permission to take off. Command Center. Command Center. CVZ-72 Aircraft Carrier requests to take off. Permit to take off. Wu-Tilda, an aircraft carrier that is more than 300 meters long, more than 40 meters wide, with a full load displacement of 100,000 tons and a staff of more than 5,000 people, has left the base and headed for this destination. Not only the United States, but also other countries are like this. Not only aircraft carriers, but also other types of defense and control weapons and equipment are all put into use, especially SHIELD, a special department supported by several countries. The space carriers it developed were also urgently called upon at this time, and all the carriers that could take off and fight took off. For a time, the airspace of Houston, where the incident occurred, had been targeted by long-range weapons from all over the world, and several space carriers were quickly surrounding it. In this regard, the United States, the most powerful country in the world, could not refute it, because this incident is no longer an internal issue of a country. Even in the previous Reincarnation Army incident, the United States made some concessions on the formation of the World United Army, let alone now. Life and death. No longer allowed to think about it. Barack, the 44th President of the United States and the first African-American president in history, is sitting with the leaders of various countries at this time. The room was quiet, and everyone frowned and said nothing, because they were waiting for a message, an important message about the development of the situation next. Still no response? Barack said softly. He was always optimistic, but now he was frowning. Sir, no. A female assistant answered Barack's question, but this answer made the leaders of various countries present sigh secretly, and their faces became even uglier. No need to wait any longer, we have to attack first, otherwise when the other side makes a move, how many of our citizens will be lost under that kind of weapon? The French leader suddenly spoke up. From his expression, it was clear that he was not in a good state. Obviously, too many things had happened recently, which led to a serious lack of rest. What about the coordinates of the other side? Even if we want to attack first, we have to find out where the other side is, right? The British leader spoke up. When he said this, he was not refuting the French leader's opinion, but reminding that without coordinates, the missile would not know where to go after it was launched. Would it be a fireworks show? Coordinates? Isn't it already in that document? Although it is not accurate enough, it is much better than waiting and enduring. Everyone's heart moved. They all knew the information that the French leader mentioned. It was the document of unknown origin, which did show the location of the alien fleet. Blind attack will not have any effect. If it fails, do we have another chance? Barack spoke, and everyone was shocked. It was true. There were indeed coordinates on the document, but this alone was not enough. First, the authenticity was not confirmed, and second, we didn't know whether the alien fleet had changed its position at this time. If we only used this coordinate to attack, how much force should we use? If the force was too small, it would either become a test or have no effect, and it would also leave the alien fleet with a chance to counterattack. But if we go all out and attack with all our strength, we are afraid that the coordinates are false. If they are true, the losses of all countries will be too great. Losses don't matter at ordinary times, but in this emergency situation, making unnecessary losses is enough to be fatal, and all countries can't afford it. For a while, everyone was silent. As national leaders, Each of them is a calm person. They may not be aggressive enough, but they will not easily make mistakes in being conservative, because their thoughts and considerations will extend far, and they often think 10 steps before taking one step, and they will never take risks. Behind them, each of them represents not a personal problem, but the fate of a huge country and hundreds of millions of people. Suddenly, a burst of rapid footsteps broke the silence here. Everyone looked up. It was Barack's female assistant. She came hurriedly with a piece of information in her hand, and her face was a little anxious. Could it be? Everyone's mind moved. So anxious. Could it be that there was an echo to the signal sent out by the alien fleet? Sir, please take a look at this. The female assistant walked quickly to Barack and handed over the information in her hand. Barack did not say anything. He took the information and looked down, frowning slightly. Unlike the echo he imagined, the information showed a coordinate. Sir, in addition to this information, there is also a short frequency. Do you want me to play it for everyone to watch? Short frequency? Barack was slightly stunned, and then seemed to have figured something out, and continued to speak. Are you saying that these two pieces of information were received at the same time? Yes, sir. The female assistant nodded. Have you found the source of the information? No, sir. Is this another document of unknown origin? Barack frowned slightly. Who could this person be? Being able to obtain detailed intelligence that the major powers do not have. The other party's strength is obviously not to be underestimated, but the other party has not revealed his identity, nor does he want to contact the major powers. This is obviously due to the other party's identity. Mr. President, the French leader spoke, interrupting Barack's thinking. Well, Barack came back to his senses and waved his hand slightly. Nothing, Nicole. Let's put the information out first. Okay, sir. The female assistant turned around to operate the equipment. Not long after, the screen against the wall began to show the picture. In the picture, the first thing that appeared was a single soldier warship that looked like a shark. This kind of warship was also recognized by the leaders of various countries because it also appeared in the previous document. Without letting the people present wait for a long time, the warship in the picture had already set sail, flew directly to the sky, passed through the atmosphere, and then came to a void of dark outer space. This scene was nothing special, because everyone had already seen it, and then, the battleship emitted a faint blue light. What is this? It's charging its weapons. Is it going to attack something? Look, the battleship in the picture was indeed charging, and it only took a few seconds. The energy weapons on the battleship were already fired. Without any sound, the blue energy shells had already passed through the vacuum zone of several thousand meters. Oh, God, what is this? Oh my God, how? How is this possible? The blue shells arrived in a flash from a distance of several thousand meters, but at this moment, the energy shells suddenly exploded as if they had hit something. Chapter 245 The Way of Making Choices. It was an energy shield, under attack. An energy shield covering at least tens of kilometers was revealed, and within the energy shield, there were many dense fleets. What a picture this was! The national leaders present stood up one after another, staring at the scene in the picture with wide eyes. There were countless warships, and the behemoth in the center that was like a mountain range. I couldn't believe it. Seeing this scene, let alone the courage to start a war, everyone felt that they had lost most of their energy in an instant. Everyone collapsed on their seats with pale faces and no more words. There was no way, no chance of winning, let alone whether this huge alien fleet could be defeated. Just this layer of energy shield. It was hard to say that the weapons on Earth could break it. Nuclear bombs. Nuclear bombs are powerful, but they are not invincible. They can't hurt the enemy. What's the use of even the most powerful weapons? Is it time for the Earth and mankind to end? Doomsday is coming. Paw everyone. Barack suddenly stood up and clapped his hands. We haven't fought yet. Are we going to admit defeat? We haven't reached the last step yet. Are we going to give up everything first? Don't forget, what do you represent behind you? That's the fate of hundreds of millions of people. The leaders of several countries present were silent, lowered their heads, frowned, and didn't know what they were thinking. As the highest leaders of the country, don't they understand these questions? No. It is precisely because they understand the answers to these questions better than anyone else, understand the consequences of defeat better than anyone else, and bear greater and heavier pressure than anyone else, that they are a little at a loss, and don't know what method to use to solve the current situation, save the fate of many citizens behind them, and save this impending doomsday disaster. Mr. President, we know what you said, but facing such an enemy, does our army still have any chance of winning? The French leader stood up and saluted slightly, and his already exhausted face became even more worried. Yes, what can we do with such an enemy even if we have the coordinates of the attack? No matter how powerful the nuclear weapons are, I am afraid they can't break the enemy's defense system, right? That's right, our attacks are ineffective, and the enemy's attacks are extremely powerful. If this continues, sooner or later we will. Everyone. The depressed words of several national leaders were interrupted again by Barack, who was getting more and more impatient. Maybe he was the youngest among the national leaders, or maybe it was the adventurous spirit that was deeply rooted in his African ancestry. Compared with other national leaders who were more conservative than enterprising, Barack did not suffer much of a blow, or he had a depressed will to retreat without fighting. As a leader of a country, how can you easily admit defeat? The coordinates of the attack are already available. Let's not talk about whether its origin is reliable, just giving up the courage to fight automatically. Is this the result you want? Barack took a deep breath. The people in front of him were all national leaders who were equal to him, not subordinates who could be scolded by him. Everyone, I feel sad for your people, because the supreme leader they support is a weakling who cannot bring them security and protection. You, Mr. President. Several national leaders looked up and wanted to say something, but Barack waved his hand to stop them from speaking. Your considerations may be more favorable and safer than mine, but in my opinion, retreating without fighting is never a problem that a national leader should consider, unless the army of this country is no longer able to protect the people of this country. Otherwise, even if I die, I will not retreat a step. Barack took a deep breath and waved to call his assistant over. Connect, declare the official start of war. What, Mr. President, start a war? Several leaders exclaimed in surprise. It's not that they didn't expect this result, but Barack's actions were too straightforward. Starting a war means that there is no room for any easing. Starting a war means cutting off one's own retreat. This country, this territory, the people here. I will do my best to protect all of this, and will never let outsiders invade every inch of this place at will. Nicole, connect. Yes, Mr. President. The female assistant turned around to make preparations, while the faces of the other national leaders present were extremely complicated at this moment. Once the war started, as long as this step was taken, there would be no room for retreat. This step required not only courage, but also the heavy responsibility like a mountain. Everyone, let me say it one last time, it is better to prepare early than to make a decision late. Although you can join the battle at any time later, if you lose the best opportunity to attack, don't blame me for not reminding you if you are stigmatized in the future. Mr. President, stigma? Several national leaders suddenly fell into deep thought, their brows furrowed even more. This is the so-called way of making choices. There are pros and cons to things, and it is difficult to choose either side. The leaders present are not fools, and on the contrary, they are much smarter than ordinary people. But it is precisely because of this wisdom that they consider too much when doing things, and it is inevitable that they are too stable. To put it nicely, it is stable, but to put it bluntly, it is procrastination, fussing, and not decisive enough. The way of making choices, in this place, is also very suitable for their state. They have gained intelligence, but lost decisiveness. Time passed slowly, except for the sound of Nicole's female assistant arranging work. Everything else was silent, especially the leaders of several countries. They frowned and thought repeatedly, and a depressing atmosphere suddenly filled the surroundings of several people. Hutled. The French leader suddenly let out a long breath, and looked up suddenly as if he had dropped a heavy burden. Fuck, let's fight. Who's afraid of who? Huh? What? A French leader who considers himself elegant and aristocratic, blurted out a swear word that made everyone present look sideways, and what was even more unbelievable was the meaning of his words. What does it mean? This is to President Barack is right. I can't just consider the consequences of defeat. I have to be responsible for my people and my country. Foreign enemies have invaded. Let's go to war. Apart from going to war, we have no way out. The French leader waved his hand, and his tone became more and more firm. Such words shocked the other leaders. Yes, what's wrong with going to war? Thinking too much will only hinder your own steps, and it will not play any other practical role at all. Britain, agree to go to war. The Netherlands, agree to go to war. Sweden, agree to go to war. Belgium, agree. Chapter 246 Plasma Shield. European and American countries issued emergency orders, united as one, and jointly issued a declaration of war at the next World Federation. For a time, all countries in the world began emergency meetings within the country. Everyone knew that there was not much time left, and the fast and efficient Congress unified its caliber in just a few hours. Europe, America, Asia, Africa, and various island countries, for a time, all the voices reached a common goal that was extremely rare. That is, start a war. No one likes to be bullied, no one likes to be slaughtered, and the world has sent countless peace talks to the alien fleet, but all of them are the same, and there is no feedback. What does this represent? There is only one result. That is, there is no room for negotiation. In such an emergency situation, what else can we do if we don't start a war? Act, speed up. All over the world, in a short period of time, all state machines began to operate at high speed, and various effective weapons and equipment, warships and aircraft began to appear on the scene. At this time, Jing, who was in the secret room, also stopped practicing. Although he never left his house, through the ability of the Sky Eye, all the information from the outside world could not escape its control. Jing had first-hand information about any international events that had happened before. Jing was also paying attention to the war between various countries and the alien fleet, not because of the final outcome of the war, but because of the detailed information about the alien fleet. Boss, the alien fleet has taken action. Oh? Jing was slightly surprised. Show the picture. Yes, boss. Ding. A three-dimensional picture popped up from the watch. This picture was the information directly fed back from the satellite. In the picture, the warships that have already revealed their shapes are densely packed. They are collectively accelerating forward, and their target is exactly on the Earth. Is this a general attack? Jing watched the three-dimensional image and muttered to himself. Jing didn't know the fundamental purpose of this fleet staying in outer space for so long, and before attacking the Houston battlefield, this alien fleet did not immediately look for the possible lost Loki's scepter. What is the reason? Jing frowned slightly. It seems that the answer to this question still needs this alien warship to solve the puzzle for him. After stopping to think, Jing's attention shifted to the picture. At this time, the alien fleet had already rushed into the Earth's atmosphere. In just a few dozen seconds, the first alien fleet, more than 10 single-soldier warships, had already met with the local military forces on the Earth. Without any words, without any communication, as if they had a tacit understanding, the alien fleet and the local fighters chose to open fire and attack together. Missile shooting, energy weapons, and firelight. As expected, the local fighters were no match for the alien fleet with energy shields. With just one salvo attack, more than 10 fighters were all shot down and destroyed. Boss, if the energy shield on this kind of single-soldier warship is not removed, it will be very troublesome to fight. The army on Earth is no match for it. Yeah, Jing nodded slightly. He had captured 2 pathfinders of the alien fleet before, and he was also a little troubled by this kind of energy shield. Although this kind of shield is nothing for his own attack, it is enough to defend against the continuous attacks of ordinary shadow-level strongmen. If you don't find a way to completely eradicate this kind of energy shield, then when you go to war with the alien fleet, except for Jing himself, the rest of the 8 armies will be reduced to dispensable waste. Sky Eye, is there no weakness in this energy shield? Even you can't conquer it in such a long time? Boss, this shield is a kind of plasma theory. It is not difficult for me to conquer it and restore this shield, but what we lack is the effective technology that can restrain the ability of this shield. In this regard, I can't create it. Moreover, even if we find a way to crack it, We don't have so much time to build this kind of weapon. What about the weakness? The war is imminent, and the 8 legions cannot become waste. Li Jing frowned slightly. There is a high probability that this alien fleet is coming for him or the infinity stones on his body. War is inevitable, boss. The opponent's plasma shield is a shield that can defend against both energy attacks and physical entity attacks, but its main function is to defend against energy weapons, and its weakness lies in slow physical attacks, or electromagnetic technology that directly attacks the inside of the battleship, and spiritual power. Electromagnetic? Spiritual? Li Jing frowned again. What about that slow physical attack you mentioned? Boss, the faster the physical attack, the stronger the defense of this plasma shield will be. Unless the speed is fast to another limit, it is difficult to break through its defense. On the contrary, the shock kill boxing technique created by you, boss, can break through the defense of this plasma shield with its rapid vibration frequency. Frequency? Li Jing frowned and thought. He really didn't expect the defense of this plasma shield to be so strong. Even if the shock kill boxing technique can break through the opponent's defense, it would not be able to play a decisive role in the next battlefield. First, this kind of boxing requires a high level of practice, and it is impossible to popularize it to everyone in a short period of time. Another thing is that it is impossible to throw all the 8 armies into the air to fight hand-to-hand with the enemy's warships, right? This method simply doesn't work. Huh? Li Jing was slightly stunned, as if he suddenly figured something out. Sky-eye, electromagnetic, frequency. Is it possible to create a weapon that can release a strong electromagnetic frequency, just like imitating my shock kill boxing attack, without directly attacking the external defense of the opponent's warship, only targeting their internal facilities? It is best to destroy them directly. Is there such a possibility? Huh? Hearing Li Jing's idea, it took several seconds for Sky-Eye's computing power to react. Boss, I've done some calculations, and there really is such a possibility. At least I'm more than 60% sure that I can make this weapon for you. Li Jing nodded slightly. That's good. You calculate the theoretical technology first, and I'll arrange the next preparations for you. Okay, boss. Danyan's voice disappeared, and it was obvious that he was concentrating on calculating the electromagnetic technology and electronic intelligence system. No matter how smart and humane it is, even if it is already an alternative life form, it is still far behind human creativity. Chapter 247 Private Territory. While the Sky-Eye was deducing the feasibility of electromagnetic weapons, Li Jing was not idle. With a thought, the secret room was empty, and his figure appeared in a somewhat dark space through the space-time ninjutsu. This space of different time and space is truly Li Jing's private territory. It is a space automatically opened up by his universal eye, with a range of hundreds of kilometers. Although there is no sunlight or other natural scenes in this space, because it is connected to the outside world through Li Jing's universal eye, it has the most important factor for people to survive, that is, air. In the somewhat dark space, where Li Jing appeared, there was a large building. This building looked more like a large fortress similar to a laboratory. The fortress should not have been completely completed yet. Some people wearing Cobra's unique costumes were gathered together, looking at the drawings in their hands and talking about something. My lord, my lord, my lord. Seeing Li Jing appear, several Cobra officers stopped what they were doing and saluted. Yes, Li Jing responded and waved his hand slightly, indicating that several people should continue to work. After several Cobra officers saluted again and left, Li Jing also took a step and entered the interior of the large building that was about to be completed. This laboratory was built by Li Jing after he entered the Marvel world, and the main purpose was to create a large army that could be carried with him. Not only that, the future logistics team, as well as the further development and utilization of this alien space. The progress of these works, Li Jing needs to have assistants around to help. Otherwise, if he wants to do so much work alone, it is unknown how much time it will take. It's too wasteful. Li Jing's essential purpose is to become stronger, but he doesn't want to be entangled in these trivial matters. If such a state is really formed, it will be the real putting the cart before the horse, and picking up sesame seeds while losing the watermelon. The interior of the laboratory is very large, The layout is full of science fiction colors, and there are many partitions. The number of people fully loaded can reach more than tens of thousands. Nowadays, many areas have been put into use. Li Jing has experienced a lot of time and space, and the types of resources he has obtained are also many. According to the planning of the Sky, the laboratory is temporarily divided into 5 areas: technology area, gravity technology, pulse technology, particle technology, armor technology, power technology, energy technology, ray technology, electromagnetic technology, and many other scientific research projects are being put into development one after another. Biological area, cloning technology, activation technology, cultivation technology, fusion technology, transformation technology, etc. In this regard, whether it is the summoning beast, or the latest 8-part army, or the Josh clan, the technology here has played an indelible and significant role in promoting it. Integration area. Here, you can see all kinds of ninjutsu, all kinds of physical training methods, and various other martial arts systems. Hundreds of scientific researchers have started busy work, and their job is to integrate these martial arts systems and then develop and research them again. Supernatural area. This is a miscellaneous area, and most of the research inside is about existence that cannot be distinguished, such as curses, backlash, or other phenomena related to the soul, and some other supernatural existences, such as I's crown and the Infinity Stones. Central area. This is the last area, and it is also an area that belongs exclusively to Li Jing. The people here do things that are tailored for Li Jing. For example, the logistics team set up by Li Jing will do research, supply, and work here. Sir, Li Jing came to the central area, and the general manager here greeted Li Jing. This person was Ma Ba-Ai from the world of Naruto. She was originally a staff member of the refuge. After the death of the refuge, the Hidden Cloud village was also captured by the 8 divisions, and Ma Ba-Ai was also imprisoned as a prisoner. Li Jing also took a fancy to her work ability. After changing Ma Ba-Ai's memory, he arranged her here. Well, how is the situation here? Li Jing waved his hand slightly, but his footsteps did not stop, and he went directly to the more central location of the laboratory. Sir, everything is ready, and the construction of the base is only the last step. I believe that it will be completed in a few days. Ma Ba-Ai followed Li Jing and reported the work softly. Well, speed up. The next batch of materials will arrive soon. You prepare, and when the base is completed, immediately start the transformation plan of this space. Yes, sir. By the way, gather researchers in electromagnetic technology and prepare all basic equipment. There will be tasks for them to do later. Okay. Ma Ba-Ai responded and wrote it down casually. Seeing Li Jing waving his hand, she stopped and saluted, then turned and left to arrange the work. Li Jing kept walking and came directly to the center of the base. Ma Ba-Ai, although this woman has a darker skin color, it can't hide her delicate features and her unique charm. Just based on this point, Ma Ba-Ai is already a very tasteful woman, but Li Jing doesn't value these. There are many beautiful women, but having an extremely important analytical mind, doing things meticulously and methodically, this is extremely valuable. Not only that, Ma Ba-Ai is also very efficient. The base can be built in a few months. The existence of this woman is a great contribution. Putting aside these trivial matters, Li Jing came to a door that was 2 meters high. Open the door. Ding. Identity detection is in progress. Detection is successful. Welcome, sir. Buzz. The door opened, and Li Jing stepped in. This is the core part of the base. A large secret room with the highest defense system. The things stored in it are all put in by Li Jing himself. Without his order, outsiders can't easily enter here. DA. All the automatic sensor lights lit up, and the originally dim space suddenly became bright, and the existence in the secret room was also exposed, allowing people to see everything at a glance. The first thing that came into view was a huge monster that was hundreds of meters high. This huge existence was cylindrical in shape and as black as ink. It was the Spear of Heaven that Li Jing obtained from the world of Naruto. The Spear of Heaven was originally thousands of meters high, and it was only under the irradiation of the shrinking ray that it was maintained at a height of hundreds of meters for a long time. But the energy contained in this weapon is so high that being able to maintain it in this state is already the best level at which the active energy contained therein can be utilized. Chapter 248 Danyan Ring. Without stopping for too long, Li Jing walked to the front of the Spear of Heaven. At this position, there was a small silver box floating in the air. Click. Li Jing stretched out his hand and opened the box, revealing a silver ring inside. On this ring, there were 7 obscure engravings of varying lengths, the main control center of the Spear of Heaven, the original large device, and the 7 silver metal tubes representing the 7 scales. After Li Jing's analysis and research, it took several years to refine it again. In the end, what was left was the heavenly sound ring that could freely control the Spear of Heaven. Li Jing gently picked up the heavenly sound ring and put it on the index finger of his left hand. After a moment, he went straight out of the secret room. It didn't take long for Li Jing to come to the exclusive position of the science and technology area, because under the full calculation of the Sky, the electromagnetic technology that could ignore the plasma energy shield and specifically target the internal attacks of alien warships had already developed a specific framework. Deliver the theoretical technology of electromagnetic weapons to Mabai, and give orders to let the researchers make physical weapons as quickly as possible. The next moment, Li Jing returned directly from the different time and space to the secret room used for cultivation. At this time, the alien fleet and the local forces were fighting fiercely. Because of the plasma shield, the missiles launched by the Earth fighters could not break the defense of the alien warships. For a time, the Earth army was beaten back step by step, and the situation was already precarious. Li Jing watched the satellite images broadcast by Danyan. Just during the period when he entered the different time and space, the Earth army had suffered countless casualties, not to mention other material losses and the number of casualties among civilians. The scene in the picture was simply horrible. Most of the United States had become battlefield ruins. The overwhelming alien warships radiated towards the surrounding areas, and fighters from other countries in the world continued to come to support and quickly join the battlefield to resist the enemy's attack. But this was just a mantis trying to stop a chariot. What the Earth's military can do is just to slow down the speed of the alien fleet's invasion. That's all. There's no other use. Beep. Boss, aren't you going to take care of Loki? The Asgard has sent another army. Bring up the image. Okay. Beep. The stereoscopic image turned into a picture of several groups of people confronting each other. Li Jing could recognize who these people were. Loki, who had been attacked before, was now in a very bad state. Although he still held the scepter in his hand, his clothes were already tattered and horrible. And right in front of Loki, there were 2 more groups of people. Thor, without Li Jing activating the nanoworms in his body, he and the seriously injured Tony had already joined the newly arrived army of the Asgard. The total number of people was no less than 1,000. The last party was the X-League, the mutants, Magneto, Eric and Professor Charles. Looking at their tired faces, it was obvious that they were not feeling well after the previous attacks. Behind them, there were more than 10 members of other organizations: Wolverine, Logan, Storm, Phantom, Iceman, etc. Most of them were characters that Li Jing had seen on the movie screen. Although they were real now and their images were slightly different, it was not difficult to recognize them based on their characteristics. The 3 parties were confronting each other, and only Loki was alone. There was not even a soldier behind him. The situation was already very unfavorable. Boss, aren't we going to rescue him? The Infinity Stone is still on his scepter. Save him? Li Jing shook his head and smiled. Loki is not surrounded by only those pawns. At the critical moment, they will take action. The value of the Infinity Stone is still very high. As bait, it is natural to reflect its due value. As long as it is recycled in the final stage, it will be fine. As for Loki, his value is getting less and less now. People around Loki? Boss, is it Takaichi and the others? Li Jing smiled slightly and did not answer. Notify the personnel who are collecting resources outside to speed up the execution of the task. Don't worry about the problem of exposure. Everything is based on high efficiency. Yes, boss. Yeah, Li Jing nodded slightly. There are now thousands of Cobra members carrying out missions outside. Whether it is mutant gene samples, or information on secret bases in various countries and other things. There are also special elemental substances, such as rare substances such as tritium, which are all mission targets collected by personnel outside. Also, since the Earth has gone to war with the alien army, let's notify the new team to come back, okay? Suddenly, Li Jing, who was speaking, frowned. Without thinking, he activated the space-time ninjutsu. Boom. With a loud noise, the world shook. In the midst of the radiant light, the castle on the hill had turned into ashes, and then disappeared. It was too fast. Even the several layers of barriers set up by Li Jing were destroyed directly like a dead tree or rotten wood. Although most of these layers of barriers only played the role of shielding and concealing, they could not stand the height of Li Jing. Even if it was a barrier used for concealment, after a few layers, it was enough to defend against missiles and other weapons for repeated bombings. And now, it was directly destroyed. Even the mountain under the castle was annihilated into a circular deep pit by this sudden attack. The space rippled slightly, and Li Jing's figure appeared on the top of a mountain more than 10 kilometers away from the castle. Looking at the destroyed castle, Li Jing looked up at the sky again, and his face gradually became cold. As expected, this attack was launched by a huge monster in the air, and this huge monster far away at an altitude of 10,000 meters belonged to the alien fleet. What surprised Li Jing a little was that under the isolation and cover of several layers of barriers, the alien fleet still found his location. Was it because of himself, or because of the detection of the existence of the Infinity Stone? It was no use to think about these things. Li Jing exhaled slightly and slowly raised his hands and clasped them together. Snap! Time and space conversion. Buzz! A strange wave spread out, and the space in front of Li Jing suddenly rippled. The ripples rippled outward like water waves, and expanded to a diameter of 100 meters in a breath. Crack! A few soft sounds, and a huge black monster slowly squeezed out from the space. In just a few seconds, the black monster had completely appeared and fell to the ground. Boom! There was a loud bang, and smoke and dust rose up. This huge monster was in the shape of a cylinder. It was the world-destroying weapon that Li Jing stored in the different time and space. The Spear of Heaven. Chapter 249, Ether Ring. Ding ding dong! Li Jing raised his left hand, and the heavenly sound ring on his index finger emitted a few inaudible notes. On the ring, the 7 engravings representing their respective scales rotated slightly, flashing a tiny bit of light. Buzz! The command was issued, and the 100-meter-high sky spear suddenly trembled slightly, and then quickly rose, emitting red light. Kaka! As if her mechanism was twisting, in just a few seconds, the sky spear had already restored to a 1,000-meter-high behemoth, and the world-destroying weapon had officially started. At the same time, the alien warship in the sky also found Li Jing's position again and appeared above his head. The huge warship, which was several thousand meters long, and the energy weapon at the bottom also emitted a faint blue light again, obviously starting to charge and prepare for attack. HMPH! Li Jing snorted coldly, and his mind moved. The heavenly sound ring had already issued a command, and the sky spear, not far from Li Jing, also began to change its form again and became the final attack mode. Boom! The red light shone, the black device rotated, the energy of the Spear of Heaven exploded, and the huge attack at an incredibly fast speed suddenly rushed into the sky. Boom! There was another short explosion, and the space battleship in the sky also launched an energy attack. The blue energy shock wave rushed down and quickly hit the ground. One was blue, and the other was red. 2 extremely huge energy columns, moving up and down, collided with each other in just a short moment. Boom! This scene was like a punishment from heaven. Ordinary people thousands of kilometers away, they looked up at the sky, and suddenly felt that their eyes were pierced by a dazzling light, and then they were knocked unconscious by a violent sound. In the air, the violent energy wave spread rapidly, and the clouds within a range of thousands of kilometers were immediately swept away, leaving nothing behind. Even the space here was shaken by the violent energy explosion and was in danger. Crack, crack, crack! With a few sounds, The Appalachian Mountains were directly shaken by the huge impact and several cracks appeared. The largest one was dozens of meters wide and bottomless. The entire mountain was cut into two sections by it and collapsed deeply. Li Jing stood there expressionlessly, looking coldly at the huge space battleship in the sky. Since the Spear of Heaven can be used as a weapon of destruction, the energy it contains is so huge that it is not too difficult to use it to destroy the Earth. However, he did not expect that the warships of this alien army were so powerful that the attacks they launched could actually offset the attacks of the Spear of Heaven. Li Jing's mind moved, and the warship weapons in the sky once again emitted a faint blue light. It was obvious that the opponent's weapons had begun to charge and were ready to attack again, and this time, the energy fluctuations emitted from its main weapon were more than twice as powerful as the previous attack. Looking for death, Li Jing's face became even colder. His left hand moved slightly, and the Spear of Heaven not far away also began to prepare for attack again, and increased the energy output several times again. Whether it was the space battleship in the sky or the huge Spear of Heaven on the ground, the huge energy contained in the two weapons emitted, and the space here was shaken and unstable. It was too powerful, and it simply should not belong to the weapons that humans can control. Thousands of kilometers away, even Loki and Thor, who had been in a stalemate, shifted their attention when the Spear of Heaven and the space battleship fought for the first time. There was no way. The previous energy attack on each other, the shockwave that erupted was too huge. Even though it was thousands of kilometers away, the ground where Loki and others were located was also affected, and an earthquake of no less than magnitude 3 was triggered. Although the earthquake did not last long and did not cause any harm to Loki and others, it still brought a lot of shock to the three parties present. The three parties looked at each other, as if they had reached some kind of agreement in just a moment. They all retreated a distance, and then quickly rushed to the direction where Li Jing was. At this time, Li Jing was controlling the Spear of Heaven to fight against the space battleship in the air. One blue and one red, two huge energy columns of different colors had already formed a fight in the air. Boom, boom, boom. Because the energy was too huge, bursts of sonic booms would be heard from the intersection of the two energies in midair from time to time. Li Jing's face became even colder. Who was the real enemy? The enemy's specific purpose had not been figured out yet, and this inexplicable fight had already formed. Damn it! With a cold shout, a little silver starlight suddenly flashed from the center of Li Jing's eyebrows. After the starlight appeared, it was magnified. It was the ether ring hidden and nurtured beside Li Jing's Dharma image. Raising his right hand, the ether ring automatically flew up and was put on Li Jing's middle finger. Li Jing only felt a huge force suddenly filling his whole body, and he had great power and strength in every move. Although this kind of power is an external object, it is extremely different. What kind of difference is it? Even Li Jing, who has experienced it personally, can't describe it. Because of this external force, it seems to belong to oneself since birth. It doesn't seem to be using a dead object at all, but it is caused by the mind. This extremely powerful force will point to where it is, just like driving an arm. With a slight smile on the corner of his mouth, Li Jing raised his right hand and opened it. A huge amount of energy gathered from Li Jing's hand, and the blood-red energy flowed, directly forming a blood-red giant sword that was dozens of meters long. Go! Swoosh! With a thought, the blood-red giant sword has flashed with cold light and rushed into the sky. Its speed is so fast that it has reached the front of the space battleship in a blink of an eye. With a snort, because the blood-red giant sword was too fast, even if the space battleship had a plasma shield, it was penetrated by the blood-red giant sword's powerful attack by more than half. It's not over yet. In just a breath, more than 10 blood-red giant swords have appeared from the ground. These giant swords are superimposed layer by layer at an absolute speed, and they have hit the physical giant sword that penetrated the plasma shield for the first time for no less than a dozen times. Adding speed is not as simple as 1 + 1. Before the plasma shield can wipe out the blood-red giant sword, this blood-red giant sword has already penetrated the shield and went straight to the space battleship inside. Swish swish! The blood-red giant sword has penetrated the defense wall of the space battleship again and again. Boom! With a bang, The blood-red giant sword exploded directly inside the space battleship, shaking this huge space fortress. The space battleship was blocked, and the energy attack launched by its main weapon began to become extremely unstable. Li Jing took in all the changes, sneered slightly, and the sky spear under his control increased its energy output again. Please vote, please reward, please support. Muah. Chapter 250 Red Lantern. The blue energy column was defeated, and the red energy of the Spear of Heaven pushed forward and exploded layer by layer. In just a few seconds, the intersection of the two energies was not far from the main body of the space battleship. Li Jing waved his right hand, and the ether ring worn on his middle finger glowed slightly, and a blood-red sword blade only more than 10 meters long was condensed again. This sword blade was different from the previous one. Although it was only 10 meters long, it was compressed and gathered by Li Jing with more than 10 times more energy than before. With a thought, Li Jing threw the more than 10-meter-long blood-red sword blade into the attack of the Spear of Heaven. Under the impact of the energy of the Spear of Heaven, the blood-red sword burst out at an unprecedented speed and rushed into the sky, reaching the main weapon position of the space battleship. Boom! With a loud bang, Li Jing sneered slightly. He was right. Even if the plasma shield had a strong defense, the main weapon had to be left empty when the spaceship attacked. Otherwise, the enemy would be blocked by the plasma shield before it could hit the enemy, and the energy cannon of the main weapon would cause the spaceship to self-destruct. This war fortress, where its attack power was the strongest, was also where its defense power was the weakest. The main weapon was damaged and was directly cut open by the blood-red sword, and then the energy attack of the sky spear was launched, which went straight to the inside of the spaceship. Boom! With a violent explosion, the spaceship was instantly torn into pieces, and fragments flew all over the sky, and a meteor shower fell directly within a range of thousands of kilometers. After dealing with the powerful enemy in front of him, Li Jing was slightly relieved. This war fortress was too difficult to deal with. If he didn't have a few good weapons in his hand as a trump card, it would take a lot of effort to deal with it by himself. It's still not strong enough! What is this? Li Jing, who was thinking, was interrupted by the new situation. His brows were furrowed and his face was getting worse. What is this? It was exactly the same as the space battleship destroyed by Li Jing before. Within his perception range, 3 of them appeared at once. Before Li Jing could think about anything else, the figures of the 3 behemoths had already appeared in his sight. It was only a few seconds. With the speed of these war fortresses, not only Li Jing saw them, but even Loki and others who had come to a range of thousands of kilometers also saw the 3 behemoths appearing in the sky. What the hell is this? Tony followed Thor, and everyone stopped and looked up at the sky. The alien fleet is different from the Chitauri army that Loki brought. I have never seen this army before. Thor frowned slightly, and then looked at another Asgard warrior beside him. Hogun, don't look at me, I don't know either. Hogun shrugged. After the death of the previous Asgard warrior Volstagg, he was sent by the god's domain. Thor frowned even more. This alien army didn't even know the origin of the Asgard warriors who had been fighting outside for many years. It must be from the world outside the 9 kingdoms. And it was hidden very deeply. However, with the powerful combat power of this army, how could it be possible to remain unknown and not show up until now, and inexplicably come to attack the Earth? Thor, look! What? Interrupted by Hogun's thoughts, Thor looked up at the sky along his finger, and hundreds of kilometers away, the black spots formed by the 3 space battleships were changing again. Li Jing saw this change more clearly, because the 3 warships were right above his head, looking at the faint blue light that represented the charging of the weapons. Even with Li Jing's steadiness, he had enough at this time. Again and again. Do you really think I am a clay man without temper? Li Jing's face became colder. In the breath, his figure had disappeared. When he appeared again, he was not far away from the 3 warships that were thousands of meters high. Since you are here to deliver food to me, I will accept it. Li Jing raised his left hand, and a faint green light flashed from his fingertips. This was the powerful killing weapon that had just been used against the space battleship carried by the Dark Elves a few months ago. The shrinking ray, Buzz tilde the green energy ray shot directly at the space battleship not far away. To deal with such a behemoth, the shrinking ray is a well-deserved invincible killing weapon. It only took a few seconds for the shrinking ray to cover the space battleship, which was as big as a mountain, to be reduced to the size of a palm. The speed of the shrinking ray may not be able to keep up with the powerful warriors, but it has a miraculous effect on this kind of war fortress that is extremely difficult to dodge, and it is specially used to treat and defeat it. Bang bang bang. Just like when dealing with the Dark Elves, the battleship was shrunk, and hundreds of aliens were ejected from the battleship, but their subsequent performance surprised Li Jing a lot, because these green-skinned aliens did not fall freely like the Dark Elves, but were all wrapped in red energy and flew in the air together. Green Lantern, looking at the rings on these people's hands and the unique logo on their chests, Li Jing said that he was not calm at all. Although the colors are different, this is definitely the Green Lantern costume. Boss, these people are not Green Lanterns, but they are also related to Green Lanterns. What do you mean? Danyan's sudden words made Li Jing slightly stunned, but before Sky Eye could answer, hundreds of red lanterns with red energy moved together and surrounded Li Jing. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hundreds of red lanterns raised their hands with the rings together, and hundreds of red energies burst out, rushing towards Li Jing. Boom, boom, boom. There were constant explosions in the air, but Li Jing's figure had already moved to another place. He frowned slightly and was still listening to Sky Eye's report. Boss, the energy used by Green Lantern comes from Will, and he is the peacekeeper of the universe. The yellow energy of the villain in the movie comes from fear, and it is a destroyer. As for this red energy, it comes from the animated version of Green Lantern. It is the energy of desire, and these energies all belong to the emotional spectrum of the universe. Boom. Li Jing dodged the attacks of hundreds of red lanterns while listening to Sky Eye's report and considering the seriousness of the current situation. Li Jing has also seen the movie Green Lantern, otherwise he would not have been able to recognize the origin of this costume at first sight. In the time and space of Avengers, it is not strange for Thor to appear, it is not strange for Iron Man to appear, and even mutants to appear. But now, what are these red lanterns? Please support, touch me. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.